5th, 2022, and we are located in the Hayden City Hall Council Chambers. Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Roden.
Present.
Councilmember DePriest.
Present.
And Councilmember White. Present.
And Councilmember...
Councilmember Satterfield is absent. We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Alan, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
You bet. This conference will now be recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do not have any requested additions or corrections to the agenda. Are there any from any member of council? Hearing none, we will move forward. Consent calendar 1A, approval of May 20th, 2021 special city council meeting minutes. By the way, it's really cool to not have any 2020s in here, so you did really well.
Yeah, we're done with 2020.
Thank you. 1B, approval of May 25th, 2021 city council meeting minutes. C, approval of May 25th, 2021 city council workshop minutes. 1D, approval of June 8th, 2021 city council meeting minutes. 1E, approval of January 11th, 2022 city council meeting minutes. 1F, approval of January 12th city council workshop minutes. G, approval of fiscal year 2021 first quarter treasurer statement. 1H, approval of MB Builders Master Site Plan Agreement PB-21-0519. I, acceptance of infrastructure for Hidden Meadows subdivision. J, approval of Hidden Meadows final plat. K, ratification of cooperative funding agreement with the City of Dalton Gardens for the 2021 chip seal project. By the way, nicely done, Alan, in that regard. L, approval of engineering services agreement with Horrocks Engineers, Inc. Is that the correct pronunciation? For the honeysuckle beet study? Was it Horrocks?
Yeah, I think
Works?
so.
Okay. M, approval of memorandum of understanding with the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board for the 4th Street and Honeysuckle Avenue roundabout. N, approval of memorandum of understanding with North Kootenai Water and Sewer District for the 4th Street and Hayden and Honeysuckle Avenue roundabout. And O, bills for payment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as read?
I'll make that motion that we approve the consent calendar A through N as stated.
Second.
What about O?
O,
What did I say?
N.
N, sorry, O.
Can you revise your?
Yeah, I make the motion we approve the consent calendar as stated A through O.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one question, Mayor, on bills. I'm looking at page 9 of our bills, and it's the second item down. It's the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and it's Street Saver annual subscription for $1,500. I'd like to know what is that for? Anybody? Yeah, tell us.
That is the software program I'm sorry, can you hear me? It's a software program that we use to facilitate in taking care of the road maintenance and helps us to classify the roads and tell us which roads need the maintenance and where that maintenance should go.
Okay, so
It's an asset management tool.
okay, it's not a subscription to be part of a commission or a group or anything. This is
It's a software package.
got it. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
When I was in Boise, I used that as an example of where is that the A through F information, or is that a separite? It's okay, it doesn't matter. That was a question, we got an answer. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I have a question. On item I, the acceptance of infrastructure for Hidden Meadows subdivision. On that page, it says the final acceptance of Hidden Meadows subdivision, but then it also says approval, improvements for Laramie Estates. And I was just wondering what the difference was between the two names.
Alan or Rob? I don't see Rob.
That would be an error, Scribner's error.
Good catch.
So what should it be?
It is what's on the title of the consent calendar.
Hidden Meadows.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I do not see, Laramie Estates on the bottom, recommendation for action. That's what you're looking at, Councilmember
Yes.
White? Good. So that will be changed. Good catch. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White,
Yes?
Councilmember DePriest.
Yes.
And Council President Roder.
Yes.
Thank you. We have had two individuals that want to address the council on non-agenda items. Teresa Roth.
Hello, Council. I'm Teresa Roth. I've spoken here once before. I'm just going to read...
Address.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
2111 James Crow. I'm just going to talk about what we had just come from the workshop of the comp plan and changes, and I had some notes about that, so I just wanted to bring them up. I agree with Ed that the future land use is absolutely the top priority. It's got to get done. It's got to be done quickly. I also believe, though, that there are serious problems with the comp plan that really do have to be addressed. And I have a proposal that I believe maybe a citizens commission can come up, because you talked about how it's easier if a citizen makes a change. I think if we had a citizens commission that made some changes to the comps plan so that it really did represent some of the concerns of the citizens. And it is not a terribly difficult thing to update. There's a few issues that are omitted. The main points, they're sort of the action points, are in the goals and priorities. That is only 4 pages. But those goals and priorities do have problems. And they have problems both of ambiguity and kind of confusion. But there's also things that are omitted from the goals and priorities that really need to be in there. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the priorities that I know I have as a citizen, and I don't know anybody who doesn't share most of these. My number one priority, which is not mentioned anywhere in the comprehensive plan, and is my main density, of course, is big, but my main problem is home ownership. Right now, Hayden is almost 80% home ownership. Right now, there is huge amounts of investment coming in. There's massive amounts of money that want to, and what that most of that investment money wants to do is buy rental property and high density rental property and pack people in as much as they can, and rental properties is the preferred investment thing. Most of these, when you go high density, you're going mostly with not homeowners. I don't really have a problem with home ownership opportunities that are higher density, but that is not anywhere in the plan. There's nothing that addresses a preference for home ownership. I was at a planning and zoning meeting where a person, not even me, brought this up, and the developer had a great story for it. He thought this out, and he had plans to make sure that his duplex things that he was building were going to be sold to individuals. So there's things that could be done that haven't been done. That's my number one thing, is home ownership. There's other issues. There's the total density in the current plan. If we get rid of mixed use, it's going to really help things out. But in the existing FLUM, if you go to the sewer plan, they're talking about a total population of Hayden in 40 years of 75,000 people. This is like Manhattan. It is absurd. The total densities of a fully built out Hayden have to come way down, way down. And so they're wrong, and they've got to be reset, and they've got to be reset in the transportation plan and the sewer plan, everything. It is unacceptable to be working on a plan with the densities that are going to get us to 70,000 people in Hayden. That is insane, and it's unacceptable.
Teresa, you're doing great. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, then I won't talk about manufactured homes as a solution to low income, but I will do that at some other week. Okay, what I'd like to propose for you guys to consider is a citizens commission that will get together and make changes, modify, get together and have the whole community come with a revised comp plan. Most of the stuff in the comp plan is just data. We don't need to redo the data. It's really just the opinions, interpretations, and the goals and priorities which really need to be worked over. So I think that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Well done. Kurt Robinson. Kurt, you're welcome to speak. I need to let everybody know you're not a citizen of Hayden, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Please state your name and address, please.
Kirk Robinson, 916 Orion Road, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm here as a citizen of Kootenai County, and I know that there has been an ongoing problem with the city of Hayden paying its fair share to law enforcement. I took 12 cities of similar populations in our area, and the average that these 12 cities pays out of the general fund towards law enforcement averages 31%. Hayden is currently at 6%, which is a burden of about $825,000 of unpaid funds by the city of Hayden that the county of Kootenai has to pay for. Myself as an individual, I pay $305 a year, where every citizen in Hayden pays $20 a year for law enforcement. And I just wanted to know, as a citizen of Kootenai County, what you guys intend to do to start paying your fair share of the law enforcement.
This is your time to comment. This is not your time to ask questions, but thank
Okay.
you. Do you have any other comments?
Yeah, we are going to be founding a citizens committee on this, and it's something that, you guys have had a long run of this record, and I know that it's taxing on Kootenai County sheriffs immensely, and that's just what I would like to say.
Perfect.
Thanks for your time.
Questions on public comment?
No, Your Honor.
no.
No, Your Honor.
Yeah, no.
No, Mr. Mayor.
May I ask you,
By the way, it's only the grandkids that can do that.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, we don't have questions for public comment.
I just want to know his residence. I want to know.
Oh,
are you in the
he
county
said
or in the
Coeur
city?
d'Alene.
I'm in Coeur d'Alene.
So Coeur d'Alene Police Department supplies,
No, I'm actually unincorporated,
okay.
We're okay.
so I would be in the county.
It's okay.
It's okay on the residency.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
No, unless you're asking
Kurt
for
or
residents.
Kirk?
K-I-R-K.
Thank you.
Got it. And we'll
Star
always
Trek.
have, that's a fair thing, because sometimes we don't know. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Is that for everyone that speaks, they've got to include, in fact, Teresa, I need to make sure, you just put James Crow, so your address? James Crow in Hayden?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you. So Sandy, Ed, and others, so everyone that comes in that wants to speak publicly fills out a speaker's card for public comment. On that, we'll have address, phone number, well, address and legal name. Perfect. You got me going today. All right. Number 3, unfinished business action item, Government Way Corridor Study Report.
You just want my.
It's this one?
Yep.
Okay. By the way, as you're going forward, Sandy, really good catch on Laramie.
Thank you, sir.
Way to go. I don't mean to be too nice, but that's
Hopefully I won't need my
for people
glasses.
to know. You did your homework, because I didn't notice it. And you look really good. Alan?
Mayor and council, I've got Jennifer Emerson Martin on the line. She's going to give this presentation. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. She is the consultant that did the study. She's with Itiris. There in your packet is the actual study. It was about 150 pages or somewhere in there.
It was the online packet. We don't,
Yeah.
We do have one in the book.
yeah.
And the goal is for her to give you the highlights of this packet. And then the hopes is that it would be adopted by the city. That gives us the opportunity to start doing projects, putting it on a capital improvement plan, and start addressing the issues. This study came about from, it was financed by HURA, and they were looking at projects in the city that, transportation projects specifically that they could participate in. And it started out as a study really looking at Honeysuckle and Government Way, which has been one of our places we get the most amount of calls on. But in looking at that, we wanted to look at a bigger area. We wanted to look at more like from Hayden down to make sure there isn't other things in this area that are creating or contributing to those factors. So, Jennifer, are you online?
Here.
Okay. We are ready for you.
Great. And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks, Alan. And thanks, Council. Like Alan said, this study came about actually during the 2040 Transportation Strategic Plan update that was completed in December of 2020. And what we aim to do with this, the project goal was to study the congestion on Government Way so that we could understand the traffic patterns and any sources of delays along the corridor. Out of this study, we wanted to develop alternatives for the existing intersection with Honeysuckle Avenue and Government Way. And then the results from the study is we wanted to provide the city with a context-sensitive solution for improving the existing facility. The agenda for today, what we're going to run through is the full data collection that was completed for the effort. We'll touch on the highlights from that. We will look at the existing conditions analysis that was completed, as well as the future conditions analysis that we looked at. We will also discuss the potential Commerce Avenue frontage road in the area of the study, as well as the Government Way and Honeysuckle alternatives that were looked at, and then we will touch on the highlights from the study recommendations. If you could go to the next slide, please. The data collection effort that was completed was actually pretty extensive. We looked at both qualitative and quantitative information, and we did in-field reviews as well as looking at available tools and data that we had available to us at the time. We collected information from signal timing and equipment, and that included information from both the city of Hayden as well as ITD along US 95. We looked at intersection counts. We obtained new count information in May of 2021 along Government Way. And then we also did an extensive review of the non-motorized system, as well as signage and just a thorough physical site review, because we wanted this to be a multimodal study. So on the next page, or slide, excuse me, the site review that was completed was a walking site review that took the majority of a day. And the purpose of doing this is we wanted to make sure we could get the full feel of a non-motorized system as it stood. And so this was done in May of 2021 as well. And we looked at both the bicycle system, the non-motorized transportation system, crosswalks, driveway access, and densities along the corridor. And then we did note and highlight in the study that there was quite a bit of art and beautification along the corridor, which makes it a nice walkable area. So the existing conditions analysis on the next slide was pretty extensive, like I mentioned. We completed quite a bit of analysis beyond what's shown here. And then, but I want to highlight some of the findings. So one of the studies that we completed was a crash analysis. In the crash analysis, one notable finding is that there were 0 fatalities in the last 14 years along Government Way.
Because we're not going fast enough. So that's it. Sorry about that. I saw that when I looked at it. My fault, Jennifer. Keep going.
Well, I totally didn't hear it. I have a...
Oh,
You're lucky.
that's okay. I said the speeds wouldn't allow any fatalities.
Yeah, which is good, right? We looked at the non-motorized system, and the biggest thing we found in that is that there are gaps in the existing system, but primarily outside of the immediate Government Way corridor. We did a a review of the ADA accessibility. It was mostly a qualitative review by looking at the existing preferred typical sections and what was built in the field. And then we actually did a pretty good analysis I'll show you in a minute on the circulation patterns and driveway densities. And we noticed there were some areas of the corridor which had very dense driveway access points and some areas that did not. In the review of ITS, we noticed that the corridor is actually uncoordinated between the existing signals, and that has to do with the distance apart that they are. Nothing wrong with the current system. But this is all something that was completed in the existing conditions analysis. And we also completed the signal warrant analysis for the intersection of Government Way with Orchard, as well as a level of service analysis for all of the signalized intersections along the corridor. The importance of all of this analysis, and this is a good slide, the importance of all of this is just to show that the corridor is large and includes multiple types of travel, not just vehicles. So on this next slide, this is just an example of some of the analysis that was completed and the visual representation of it. On the left, we show a collision density figure, which shows that there's a heavy density around Honeysuckle and Government Way, as well as Government Way with Prairie. Although Prairie was outside of the extents of this study, we did include it in the crash analysis study. The slide on the picture on the right, these are actual driveway densities, and what we were intending to look at here was to see if any of the driveway densities were causing congestion along the corridor. So what we do notice is that there's very heavy driveway density north of Orchard Avenue and a little bit lighter driveway density between Honeysuckle and Orchard, where there happens to be a lot of congestion. So this was one data point in our analysis. On the next slide, we have a little more technical data points, but I'd like to talk through them. On the top, we are looking at delays at the intersection of Government Way with Hayden, Orchard, and Honeysuckle. And for the most part, the signals are operating as they should, the signals with Hayden and Honeysuckle. Both are at level of service B and C, which are acceptable. But there is a failure in the PM for the unsignalized intersection at Orchard Avenue. And we note here that in the PM, they both receive a level of service of D and E. E is unacceptable to the city standards. And this is an unsignalized intersection, and the movement happens to be the movement turning from Orchard onto Government Way. And I think if anybody's tried to make that movement, they can understand that level of service. We do not see any actual roadway capacity issues. That's the middle table. There does appear to be adequate roadway capacity, which leads to the conclusion that the capacity issues aren't due to the roadway itself, but primarily due to intersections or driveways or other areas of conflict along the corridor. So we did complete a signal warrant analysis, and this is for the intersection of Orchard with Government Way. And in the existing conditions, due to the volumes that are out there and the number of movements, the intersection is not actually, signal is not actually warranted. However, it would be if the signal system was coordinated. But in an uncoordinated system, the signal is not warranted in existing conditions. However, in 2030 and 2040, we did look at a signal warrant, and we did notice that 4-hour vehicle volumes and peak hour vehicle volumes did warrant a signal in the future. So in the future, that is something to be considered.
Jennifer, I noticed this later, but if in fact a right turn signal going south on Government Way, going west on Honeysuckle, would that eliminate the congestion at Orchard?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
It's okay.
On the next slide, and we can talk about that more if you want. On the next slide, we use the City of Hayden's travel demand model, as well as other the KMPO growth forecast to look at the future conditions analysis. And what that would be is looking out into the future and seeing if these existing condition levels of service are expected to continue, and we looked at those on the previous slide, what we see here is that the intersection of Government Way and Orchard Avenue does continue to worsen. And the movement that's worsening is the movement from Orchard onto Government Way. And so it does begin to fail in 2030 to an amount where we can't actually estimate an accurate delay. That's why it says greater than 500. That just means we can't put an exact number to that estimate, but it is a failure. So with all this in mind, we decided to look at some opportunities that we could use to improve operations along the corridor. So on the next slide, one of the opportunities we looked at has to do with the currently accepted access and mobility policy that was a part of the 2040 Transportation Strategic Plan, which reviewed frontage roads along US 95 in this area. And it was a suggestion, and the reason for this policy is to increase circulation adjacent to US 95 and other major arterials such as Government Way. When we did some travel demand modeling using the City of Hayden's model to look at this frontage road, we did see that there was some alleviation of traffic on Government Way with the new frontage road. And what we show on the right, this is actually just a plot from the model, and what this is showing, kind of where people are coming from and going to who use a new frontage road. It's a little bit of a tricky plot, but it's showing that there is some desire to be on this instead of using either US 95 or Government Way to get to the destination. And we did do other analysis included on this, but we saw there was some improvement, small improvement to intersection operations on Government Way. So we wanted to dive deeper into options for improving the corridor operations. So on the next slide, it shows that we looked at two separate design options for the intersection of Government Way with Honeysuckle, because we know that that is where the biggest congestion occurs. The two alternatives that were looked at was a roundabout, and we did look at with and without slip right turn pockets. And this is based on recent studies in the area. We also looked at improving the southbound approach with additional turn lanes, extending the left turn lane and adding a right turn lane at the area. So what we saw is that overall, the roundabout in the future did not improve intersection operations at all, resulting in generally a level of service F because of the size that we were able to get in there. We weren't able to get in a very large roundabout, and we will show it on the next slide, but I'm not ready to go there yet. But there just wasn't enough room to have slip right turns to make it operate adequately. When we did do improvements to the signalized intersection, including additional turn pockets, turn lanes, we did see that we were able to maintain a level of service F into 2040. So that's in the future. That's not today. That's an acceptable level of service in the future. So the final resulting design came out to be a 320-foot right turn pocket with a 270-foot left turn pocket, and that was able to maintain the queue length south of Orchard Avenue. So we're going to look at those concept designs real fast. The first one on the next slide is the roundabout, and you can see that this is just a standard one-lane roundabout, no special right turn lanes, and this is in concept the area that it would take. Excuse me for that. And we did shift it a little bit to the north. You can see it's not quite centered on the intersection, and the purpose of that was to reduce the right-of-way take that would be required. But as I mentioned, this didn't match or meet level of service requirements. So we came up with the next option, which is on the next slide, which is our improvement to the existing signalized intersection by extending the left turn pocket and adding a right turn. Yeah, thanks for pointing at everything. That does help. So this is one view. As you can see, we add the right turn pocket and extend the sidewalk a little bit west of Government Way, but the turn pocket is within the current right-of-way easement. So there's less of an impact here. due to that. And the sidewalk just goes right over the existing sidewalk easement. If you go to the next slide, we can look a little further north on the corridor, up closer to Commerce Drive, excuse me. So what you can see on here is that the right turn pocket, the southbound right turn pocket, would begin after Commerce Drive. So everything would remain existing north of that. The bigger issue is with our southbound left turn pocket. To be able to build this the way the study recommends, it does remove the existing mid-block crosswalk because we need the additional storage length so that queue length going on Government Way does not extend past Commerce Drive. On the next slide is the study recommendations. And we have quite a bit of recommendations in here, but basically what we have recommended is to continue doing semi-annual count collection and safety analysis, including turning movements and roadway ADTs. We've also recommended to continue to complete the construction of the existing non-motorized system in the city, particularly around the Central Business District and Government Way. We have recommended under the capacity, two rows down, to look at the review of the shared driveway access within a Central Business District to make sure that we're, adequately utilizing parking and driveway access so that we're not increasing congestion spots and conflict on the roadway. On the next line, we recommend continued discussions with ITD to potentially have communication with their signals in the future, meaning if the signals on Government Way are able to talk with one another, if they were also able to talk with US 95, there would be less congestion because all signals could be coordinated. And that's a pretty easy thing to do. And but it's recommended to work with ITD to do that. Under the mobility, we did recommend to build that US frontage road if the time came to do so, and that was a possibility. And we recommend to redesign the intersection of Government Way with Honeysuckle Avenue to include southbound right turn pockets. And that is what I have, Alan.
Yes. Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer, you're staying on for questions, right?
I can, yeah.
Thank you, because I'm sure council will have some. Do you want to go forward and have questions later, Alan? Or
No, the questions are now because we would love an action item on this when we get through.
And please identify, Fonda and Brett, the action item. The action item is not to approve any costs associated with that. What is the action item that you intend?
To accept the report to adopt the report as a city's corridor study for Government Way.
Okay, to accept the report or adopt the report?
Be adopted.
What's the difference between accept and adopt?
I don't know, there's
In my mind, there is. One, adopting is a commitment for the funding standpoint.
That's where I was
And I don't
kinda
think we would have that. So Fonda?
It's a motion to accept the report,
Thank you.
including the recommendations as written, and then to evaluate further and give staff direction from council as needed and required.
Perfect. I want to make sure for the clarity.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with commitment.
I was just going to mention it's important too, because as we accept this will go on to HURA and put something that you've reviewed it, looked at it, and goes on to the Urban Renewal District for possibility for help in the future on this project.
Any questions, please? Ed?
I have quite a few here. What is video detection? Is that those things kind of mounted up over it? Are they actually videoing traffic, or what is that? It talks about video detection on the signal.
They are video cameras. They count cars, so they generate in the camera body. You can identify a zone, and it will actually count every time that zone is occupied by, in this case, a car or a truck. So it's videoing the roadway, and it is counting vehicles, and it's able to keep track. If there's a vehicle stored there, sitting there waiting to make a movement, it knows there's something occupying that. That deal says, okay, I need to I need to give this deal a green light so that this thing can be
So
unoccupied.
it's video as opposed to sensors in the road type of detection?
Correct.
Okay. Stop bar video and advanced detection, is that kind of? fit
It's
in?
whether the detection is at the stop bar or in advance. So you would have, in a downtown area, you may only have stop bar, but in an area where you have traffic flow and you may have higher speeds, it can be important to have advanced so that you might be able to get the signal to respond before the vehicles even get there. Or it may delay it from turning red or yellow to allow that next car to come through.
So what you're advocating then is to, in the left-hand lane, so we can get there to go really, really fast?
That's right.
I just,
Yellow means go, faster, whatever it is. What is Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 bike routes? What are Class 1, 2, 3 bike routes?
Jennifer, can you?
Jennifer,
Yeah.
did you hear the question? Okay.
Sort of. Class 1, so the different types of bike routes have to do with whether or not it's a separated path, if it's on a roadway, or if it's a shared roadway. And this study leaned heavily on what was done for the Transportation Strategic Plan for that. So I know that we recommended on Government Way to share the road with bicycles. What that would mean is it could be a signed bicycle route with an understanding that bicycles share the road with vehicles.
With no line? with
And
no
part of the
bike lane?
reason,
The comment, Jennifer, was with no,
No bike lane,
lane.
with no line. It's just you're on the road.
that would be a share the road would not include a bike lane.
Right,
Right.
okay. On page 57, talks about, I think a little bit going towards this frontage road, Commerce. It says, right in and right out, no left turn from eastbound Honeysuckle onto Commerce. So I guess if that were to occur, I'm coming off at 95 and I want to go to Les Schwab, which means I have to turn left onto Commerce to get into Les Schwab, and this says right in, right out, no left turn. Would the anticipation be that traffic would turn onto Orchard and come down Commerce to get to those?
That would be coming, no left turn coming off of Commerce Drive. So if you were coming,
Not off of
if you were coming to Commerce Drive, you would only be able to take a right or a right in. The right in, though, does mean no left off of Orchard and
Orchard or Honeysuckle?
Honeysuckle, excuse me. And the reason for that is really the traffic backs up across there really isn't adequate.
So how do the people who want to go to Les Schwab get onto Commerce off of Honeysuckle?
Well,
No, just the opposite. It's Commerce onto Honeysuckle.
well,
Not Honeysuckle on.
the right turn in, Mayor, would also affect.
no, he meant if I turn right on Honeysuckle and I want to turn left into
No,
Les Schwab.
no, I'm coming off at 95.
That's what I mean. I meant right.
Headed east, and I need to turn
Turn
left
left.
onto Commerce to get
Yeah.
to,
That's acceptable. That would.
that is
The
acceptable.
recommendation here, it would be that it's a right in, right out. That does not mean that you have to follow the recommendation, but that is.
Okay, I just thought I saw. no-
I don't, because I read it a lot, I thought it said you can turn left, north, from Honeysuckle onto Commerce to go to Les Schwab. But when you're leaving Les Schwab, you cannot turn left back onto Honeysuckle, you need to turn right. Is that the correct?
Mayor, I would have to.
Honeysuckle Avenue with Commerce Drive.
Isn't that correct?
That is correct as I read it. And at
Okay.
this point,
Okay.
that has to do with a lot of the operations at both US 95 and Honeysuckle, along with Commerce Drive and Honeysuckle, and then the next of Government Way with Honeysuckle. And so I believe a lot of this, in its concept at this point, was to look at being able to revise the traffic patterns in that general area. And right turns do a better job of that than left.
Right,
But
what
there's still access to all those destinations.
What I'm reading here off of page 57 says, for this analysis, the operation of the intersection of Honeysuckle Avenue with Commerce Drive is converted to a right in, right out operation, removing the ability for eastbound left turns from Honeysuckle onto Commerce.
That's where I was.
Okay, but that would be in north, that's why I had the question.
No.
It wouldn't be
That'd be eastbound.
turning north.
Crossing westbound
Okay.
traffic. And this,
And I don't even know
In
if
that
that's a
case-
legal turn today, because I don't think the left turn lane is there for that turn. I'm not saying people don't
Not
make it.
today.
There isn't.
Okay, okay. Now, the right turn lane off of Government Way on the Honeysuckle, will that have a, a dedicated right turn signal as opposed,
Yes.
it will be signalized or will it be merge? As the traffic comes
No,
down,
it'd be
No,
a signal.
it
It
would
would
be-
have its own signal.
telling cars who are queued up in that right-hand turn lane, you can't go, type of thing, as opposed to if it's clear, you can, it'll be that same rule?
It would be like most
No,
right
they could also
turn.
do a right when available.
Yes. I was gonna say-
It's not a no right on red. They would just have their own right turn signal.
Okay. The signal at Orchard and Government, it sounds like you're saying that's recommended, not immediately, but in the future, it will be needed. The Commerce Extension to Orchard, that's a 5 acre, right now, there's basically 5 acres of vacant land in there. What would be if it has even been, thought of, it's privately owned land, I'm assuming right now, how would that be purchased, financed? Would HURA be involved? Would it be, who would pay for the roadway and infrastructure that would go in at the time?
Yeah, that could happen in a number of ways, and we don't define how that may happen. It is part of the Transportation Master Plan. Therefore, if the property did develop, the city has the right to request that to be completed. At that time, there would be like I'm trying to think of the right term, and Anna, maybe it'll help me. It's how much of that can be put on the developer and how much would have to be put on the city would have to be defined.
Right.
But a portion of it very well could be put on the developer who developed that property, because it's in our master plan.
If the property is sitting vacant and in no stage of development, the city says, hey, we want to do this, we want to extend through there. So I would assume the city would have to purchase that land if nothing was happening?
That is correct.
And then the city would be responsible for putting in whatever, and so that the landowner would benefit in the future of already having to put that having been put in, as opposed to if he or she were just to develop that land and whatever, and themselves having to pay for that infrastructure.
And hence why I said there's a number of ways it could happen depending on the timing.
Right. Anybody else? Thank you.
Yeah, I have some questions about page 61, that's the roundabout map. Maybe we can go back to the slide of the roundabout.
Yeah, let's see if I can go back.
It was back about 3 or 4.
I got her.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, so,
use the arrow.
I tried that. It didn't go.
Well, it worked.
Go ahead,
well,
Council.
the overlay on the screen looks a little different than the overlay on the paper. It just seems like there's more cutting into the property on the northwest on the paper than on here.
Yeah, there is.
Am I reading that right?
It's still not recommended.
Oh, this isn't the
No, that
recommended
wasn't
one?
recommended but the study was looked at, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just looked on the paper like it was, I was just wondering how the landowners of that northwest property felt about this.
Well, we're not recommending that, so we
Okay.
haven't talked to them about it.
All right. So, okay, thank you.
I have one, this goes to Jennifer or Alan, either one. This study, was it based on what population model? Population growth model, let me ask you that.
This study is based on the KCAT, and the destination model was that we run, as part of the city model, which is adopted, is also based on the KCAT destination model and growth.
I don't know what that is. Now, KMPO came up with projections for our comprehensive plan that in 2040 we'd be at 36,000. So my question is this study and the numbers that you have plugged into the models based on that projection of 36,000 people in 2040?
It's based on our transportation master plan, which I believe is based on the KMPO KCAT model.
Okay, so it is
It's
that,
based on their projections as of January 2020, which I can get that number for you, but it is the KMPO growth forecast
yeah,
for the
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because you gotta shoot at something in your model to figure out what you're doing. So in other words, if growth were to slow, then our needs for road improvements would also slow. Is that true?
That is true.
It's amazing. But the wait times didn't, Jennifer, correct? When you did wait times, was that now?
That is, we did both. We did a level of service analysis for existing as well as 2030 and 2040.
So like this one is existing, and you can see Government Way in Hayden is C, Government Way in Orchard is D, Government Way in Orchard westbound is E, which is not acceptable, and Government Way and Honeysuckle is C, and this is 2021.
Alan, this has 21, 30, and then also a comparison of 2030 with 2040.
Yeah,
So all 4 years are illustrated here.
Correct, 2021, 2030, 2040.
Thank you.
One more question, I think. Projected cost, $720,000, that's today's dollar, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. Has there any been discussion, how is that funded? How will that be funded? What's that look like?
That would be the goals of the next step. In other words, we would start looking at, this would likely go into our impact study so that we could collect impact fees for it. And then we would look at the potential of, I would hope we'd look at the potential for federal funding. We could also look at the potential for HURA funding.
That's the difference between adopting and accepting when I was talking about before.
So the goal, I would hope, would be that grants, impact fees, other sources than having to raise taxes. Okay.
We have $5.5 million right now in traffic, doesn't include this, and $400,000 to do it. So this.
A little bit, huh?
Yeah. But Brett, you can talk about, in fact, real quick right now, because I'd like to get law enforcement moving forward. For Honeysuckle and 4th Street, is that all federal finance monies? Are there some impact fees, and is there any general fund?
It's a mix of impact fees and general fund money.
But that's different, so that's a good analysis. Any other questions? Hearing none, we need a motion, and to accept this study and its recommendations. That motion does not bind any actions associated with adopting any or all of these recommendations, correct?
That is correct.
So
The motion also and/or the approval is not committing to any funding of the projects discussed in this report at this time.
thank you. So does the motion need to include acceptance of the recommendations?
Just an acceptance of the report to include the recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a motion as such?
So motion?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Jennifer and Alan, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer, you can leave now unless you want to, help us on any of the other issues.
Thanks, Alan. I'm going to leave. Thank you.
4A, thank you, Alan. And Zach, thank you.
I'm going to try to get the...
We will now hear from Sheriff Norris, Law Enforcement Services presentation. By the way, I think
My
this...
presentation will not be as long nor as exciting as that last one.
Well,
I hate to disappoint you.
I am grateful that I didn't get any text from you this weekend, so thank you.
It's about time, right?
It's about time.
For the
Been
record,
busy
the mayor
time.
has 2 speeds, parked and pegged. So those are the only 2 you follow, right, as far as speed on Government Way?
Not fun. I've been pretty good. I was going to a meeting while you're getting that ready, down Ramsey and Coeur d'Alene. a few years ago, left a meeting here and went to the City of Coeur d'Alene meeting, and I did get stopped by a Coeur d'Alene policeman and did not, for all of you for the record, never said a word about who I was or where I was going, and thanked him for his kindness and the ticket that he provided. Of course, I did call, then I called this chief of police. Yeah, I figured there was a reimbursement.
So as they're getting that, I have part of my presentation that's not on a PowerPoint.
Perfect. If you could start, the time is yours.
Yep. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, members of the council, the public, it's an honor to be your sheriff, and it's an honor to be your police chief here in the city of Hayden. Who I brought here today with me is the clerk of Kootenai County, Jim Brannon. Jim Brannon brings a degree of credibility on how much we're spending here in this beautiful city. Captain Stu Miller brings an interesting perspective to the group because he started when this city was way under 10,000 people in the 4,000 to 5,000 population range, worked as a deputy right here in the city of Hayden, sergeant, lieutenant, and now one of our captains. And also we have Brett Nelson, who I'd like to introduce you to. Brett is our new undersheriff here in Kootenai County. He is currently a captain, and he was going to give a short little presentation. And I might have to dance a little bit longer. Well, that's okay.
He has the flash drive. He's getting it queued up.
Okay.
It's going to be in this folder, and I'm pulling it up.
No problem. At the end of this presentation, it's going to be a short snapshot of the state of the city. Very, very short. We have seated two new council members, and I'd like to have taken that opportunity to give you a snapshot of what the city looks like as far as law enforcement and the same thing that I did last year. And at the end of this small little presentation, there will be an ask. So we will be asking you for something.
That's so unlike you. By the way, do you have to be over 21 to be a captain now?
I like that. Thank you.
I mean, Stu's 35, so that's not a bad deal.
No, he's only 22. See what happened?
The betterment of law enforcement when you take that, right? First and foremost,
By the way, you have to. There was an event here a week ago Sunday. Has it been a week?
It has.
And it doesn't matter the specifics. They'll handle the report and the specifics. But I've never been more grateful for your efforts on that day and protecting the lives of 300 people that were very close to the situation. So my public thanks. I thanked many of you in person. It was a cold day, but it was extremely professional, and we are extremely grateful. So thank you.
Yeah, that was an officer-involved shooting that occurred here at a church. We had another one last night, so we're a little bit tired. But we had two in about a 2-week period, and it's not that small Kootenai County that it once was. And this is January. Now, we might accept these if this was in June, July, or August. This is January, and our activity level is where it's at. So, Brett?
With regards to the Hayden Police Services, I'm going to give you a little statistical background in regards to some things that we've taken over the years with the services provided to the city. First and foremost, back in 2011, there was approximately 13,062 residents within our geographical area of Hayden. As of 2020, we're approximately 17,000 strong within our 10.42 miles of policing area or geographical area that we cover to provide policing to all of you. Assigned patrol deputies, we have approximately, say, three and a half deputies that work full-time, obviously 2 of them being here, that work the town or city of Hayden on a full-time basis. Per deputies per 1,000, if you take that in a statistical analysis, that comes out to about 0.22 deputies per 1,000 residents. To give you an analysis compared to the residents or the area surrounding here, Coeur d'Alene comes out to about 1.6 officers or deputies per 1,000 residents. Post Falls comes out to 2.2. And then also Rathdrum and Spirit Lake, considerably smaller areas, smaller departments, come out to 1.6 each also. Dating back to 2009, you can see where our calls for service were. In 2009, we had 6,394 calls for service just within the city of Hayden. 2011 it jumped up to 7,400, 2019, 8,100, 2020, 8,200, and then as of 2021, we're at 10,600. So a steady incline of business, right? We have an influx, we have a growth, and obviously the nature of our business is more people, more activity, more calls for service we're going to generate within the geographical area. A breakdown of those type of calls that we had in 2021. Traffic-related incidents. We had 711 as compared to 2020, we had 543. Now, traffic-related incidents, you'd normally think those are traffic collisions. Those are not. Those are everything involving a traffic, if you will, a vehicle, slide-offs, vehicle thefts, things of those natures, other than traffic collisions specifically. So that's just a general category that we capture. Animal calls, 573 compared to 694 the year before. Suspicious circumstances, those can be anything. Someone calls about a person walking down the street, a car parked out of the ordinary, 529 as opposed to the year before, you had 628. Traffic collisions, this is non-injury and property damage only and injury traffic collisions as a total, 372 as compared to 329 the year before. Alarms, whether it be a robbery, silent robbery alarm, burglar alarm, whatever it may be within the geographical area, 281 as compared to 251 the year before. Welfare checks, again, those are simply calls. Someone says, hey, I want you to check on my neighbor. I want you to check on my business. Again, a big area for calls. We have 254 as opposed to 268 the year before. DUIs and drugs, 246 compared to 217. Direct correlation, more traffic, more people on the roadway. You're going to have hopefully a lesser degree, but hopefully a better chance of locating those impaired drivers to take them off the roadway. Assault and battery or domestic disputes, we went from 234 to 168. Direct correlation in regards to people occupying the area. You're going to have calls for service because you have people involved. They're going to call because they have disputes.
Just for the record, if somebody's not watching, it's the other way. You went from 168 to 234.
I'm sorry, 234 to 168.
You did it again. 168 to 234.
I apologize. You're right. It's an increase. Yes.
Help me with the big question.
You're right.
Theft, does that include burglary, or are you separating the two out?
No, that's including burglary.
Okay. Do you have a breakdown of actual home?
We can get that.
Type of thing?
The statistical analysis that I was provided by our crime analysis was simply these top 10.
So that could be
petty theft. That could be
anything all the way up.
That could be Walmart to a residential burglary.
Right.
So you have the prowlers, which are people, suspicious people in the call. That's a specific area, or calls for service, which were 232 by themselves. We didn't track it the year before. And then as we spoke about, you had theft, which was 228 the year prior to.
You're doing great. 202 the year prior to.
Prior to, I'm sorry.
And 228.
I said 228 the prior year, we had 202. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for paying attention.
Yes.
I'm trying.
Now, based on those calls for service, this is a breakdown of the
He seems like a good guy, though.
We're trying, sir. We're trying. Give me a little bit of benefit. Breakdown of locations where we have those calls for service.
There you go.
Again, number one, Honeysuckle Beach, the boat launch, 452 instances where we responded to during the year of 2021. Number two, Walmart, 317. Super One, 122. The intersection of Highway 95 and Hayden, we had 86 incidences there. Highway 95 and Honeysuckle, 78. 1500 West Lancaster, which is Crawford Park, 68 instances. Highway 95 in Wyoming, 52. 72 East Little Bear Lane, anyone familiar? The general area?
What is it?
It's 51.
It's okay. Little Bear, you want to tell them what Little Bear used to be?
What it used to be? You preference me.
Okay.
All right.
Give him, just for the record, geographically, where's Little Bear Lane? Do you know where Little Bear Lane is?
Just east of 95, south of Honeysuckle.
I was going to say, thank you. Is that correct there, young man?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because you're the one that has to find it.
Correct.
Perfect, Brett.
No problem. We have
Up the road.
35 instances at Hayden Avenue and Ramsey, and then finally 175 Orchard Avenue, which is triple play. So that's a breakdown of what we've responded to in comparison over the last few years and where we're going to and the types of calls that we're generally responding to on a repetitive basis. So thank you for your time.
So what brings me here today is that the rest of the county is getting as busy. We have problems throughout this county. We have a complex of problems as it pertains to those afflicted, whether it's substance abuse or some sort of a affliction. So our calls for service are becoming more complex. I called you a couple of days ago and I said, Mr. Mayor, I've got one of your Hayden deputies in court. We have 3 of them handling a felony domestic, and we have 2 of them on a burglary call, and calls were just stacking up one after another, after another, and after another, not only in Hayden, but throughout the county. It's just a situation where if you want to provide a quality level of law enforcement services to the city residents here in Hayden, you have to support law enforcement in a adequate number of law enforcement officers. It's just, this is not a community of 4,000 anymore. As you know, or don't know, this study here was done in 2010. And this recommended a law enforcement services package or police department of startup cost of $3 million. In today's number, that's closer to $5 million. And if you include a structure, that's $9 million because of the way the property prices are around here. That was a joke, but we'll go with the 5 million. But this was done by a professional company that, if anybody was on the council at the time, ICMA. But this was done by a company that does this for a living.
No one was on the council in 2010 that's from here, but neither was Brett, but we have that data. Our Citizens Advisory Group that was put together 2 years ago that made recommendations used that data within their study, correct, Brett?
Yeah.
Thank you.
As you know, the city of Hayden is the 17th largest city in the state of Idaho. Cities 14, 15, and 16, 18, 19, and 20 all have a law enforcement budget of approximately $2.6 million. And although I appreciate the added money last year, that is still far from the level of services that we need to provide your residents here, and so we can sustain law enforcement throughout the county.
You had an Excel spreadsheet that was given to members of council by Councilmember Roeder.
Yes.
Would you like to address that?
Yeah, is that up? Do you have that up there?
We don't.
Okay. So
describe
Please,
what I did.
that'd be great.
Yeah, in anticipation of Sheriff Norris speaking, I actually presented it back in May when he addressed the council regarding the needs for law enforcement. So I asked Abby, who had data from the Cooney County Sheriff's Office. We get a report once a month on citations, arrests, accidents. Not as comprehensive as what we've seen on the screen here, but I think there are like 6 categories. Patrol hours, detective hours, I can't remember them all. But anyway, so instead of going month by month, I just took each year from 2010 to 2020 and gave the totals and graphed those. There were 3 years where I didn't have the year-end December, so I had to use the end of November. And then I looked at where the trends are with that. And I guess the point I wanted to make with that is that we should be able to share that with you, is that I think we had 2 categories that, or 3 categories that actually the trend lines were going down. Is that, do you have that there?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Which ones are trending down?
So the ones that are trending down are alarming, because it's the same ones that are trending down in cities across this nation right now because of a lack of support for law enforcement. It doesn't matter how we get to the lack of support for law enforcement. It matters that there's a lack of law enforcement. So in those 2 categories, arrests are down, and they're going to continue to be down in the city of Hayden. Citations are down because honestly, it's difficult to find deputy sheriffs that want to work in the city of Hayden because it's a paper car now. So we had a vacancy, Matt, for 6 weeks? 6 weeks? 7 weeks. Because we couldn't find anybody that wants to work here because it's a paper car. We go from
Please define that.
Paper car means you're just a deputy sheriff out there going from call to call, writing paper, writing reports. The best way to...
Washing machines.
Yeah.
The case of the missing washer and dryer. That took 8 hours.
The best way to solve a crime that's already occurred is a complete field investigation by that deputy out in the field. And if we're going to call, they don't have time to contact the neighbors to see if they saw anything, to develop relationships in the neighborhood to see what's going on. They just don't have the time to do that. So what I project will likely happen, based on arrests and citations are going to be going down, is that traffic collisions will continue to go up, and we will see a rise in crime that will continue to go up here in Hayden. So it's important that this gets addressed. The best indicator is that you're the 17th largest city in the state. There's nobody that has a better strategy for law enforcement than the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. But we can't do it for $500,000 a year. You have to be close to where the other cities of your similar size are. So, I would like an ask. I'm going to ask for $300,000 more than what you paid last year, and I'm going to go to the commissioners and ask for 3 deputies to be dedicated here, even in the city of Hayden, even though it's going to cost me more to train and outfit and to buy a car at $75,000 a piece for cars now for those deputies. But your quality of life is imperative, and if you want to try to maintain it, we have to get where we are. Honestly, I contact people at meetings and they say, hey, I have a problem like this, or I have a problem like that, quality of life issues, and I tell them, we do not have time to address quality of life issues in Hayden. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Historically, go ahead.
May I ask the sheriff a couple of questions just for the public and a point of clarification? Even if the additional funds were provided, does 3 designated deputies in the city of Hayden provide 24/7 coverage for the citizens?
No. We have 168 hours that we have to cover. And of those, you need to have, during the PM shift hours, you should have 3 deputies on minimally. During the day, you should have 2, and 1 at nighttime. We can handle it from a regional approach in the event that something happens from midnight till 6 or 7 in the morning. But no, it doesn't. But it puts us in the right direction. It points us, it's allowing us to catch up, because we need it now, whether we approve or whether the council approves another development or not. We need this now, based on our population now.
And do you have all of your deputy vacancies at the sheriff's office filled right now?
Yeah, patrol, we're doing pretty good.
Okay.
And there's the distinction.
Yeah.
Is the patrol side.
Yeah, patrol, we're doing pretty good. Yeah.
The citizens had an opportunity twice in the last 4 years. Is that correct?
2018 and 2019.
Yeah.
2018 and 2019, to be able to identify this issue specifically. And there was very little input from the sheriff's office with respect to why it's necessary. Is it, so it was interesting. The last one had a citizen advisory group that, I think, Stu, were you on that?
No, Matt Street.
Matt Street, boy, he's been gone a long time. So we hope to be able to do the same thing from a citizen standpoint, but we do need your leadership if in fact there's a need to be able to help identify how that need could be taken care of. And then obviously it would be a citizen's question with respect to general funds associated with that. Because of Hayden's low taxes, any change is such a specific percentage change that it's really, it gets the issue, or has gotten the issue, to be cloudy. And we need your leadership to keep it clean and good. Jim, any questions or any comments you have?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just, I have done this I did it for Sheriff Wolfinger, now I've updated it for Sheriff Norris, and we appreciate the increase, but the number of shortfall continues to go this way.
We understand. And Sheriff Norris is meeting regularly with Brett with respect to ongoing issues as well. And I assume maybe that Brett would be the one that will kind of make sure that that's integrated correctly, because this is for all the community. Any questions for Sheriff Norris? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's no surprise. Couple of them here, I guess. Has the sheriff, has the department itself conducted any survey of the community with regards to their perception of the need? And if the need is perceived, their willingness to fund?
Well, no, because I made a promise to the council that this problem didn't happen overnight, and it's not likely going to be resolved overnight. So we are going to put the additional stress on the deputies out in the field by asking them that, hey, we need their help during this period of time, which is going to take years, to bring this level of service up. So I'm not comfortable in restricting, limiting, pending calls for service, or putting calls for service on hold for a regular basis. I'm not comfortable doing that. So I don't want the residents to see a difference in service during this time. Now, if you guys come to me and say, hey, we're not paying anymore, that's it, then I will allow you to dictate to me, based on what you pay, where you want us to put those resources.
Yeah, I think where I was going with the question was just to get a general feel for the public of, what are you seeing out there, people? Are you...
A general gauge is they're supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, for law enforcement,
where'd it go? I may have misunderstood something or confused, but what else is new? The city increased the amount this year to 400,000?
Approximately, yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
And I'm thinking that I had heard that there had been either, an agreement in spirit, or I don't know what level of future step progressively moving up. Did I misunderstand? Or
that was my recommendation is that let's do this incrementally every year to get where we need to be. Now, how we accomplish that still needs to be worked out, but yeah, but there was no agreement with the council that Brett is the city manager, and we just...
Yeah.
So I think what the council approved, it was basically during the summer months. We increased from the 3.5 up to cover an additional officer during the 3 months. But also we heard the sheriff that we needed to do more, and I think there were some numbers that you put out there. Nothing was decided, but it was, coming from that direction, we need to we need to do more.
So
So
mind you, what the clerk has done, the 1.150, approximately 1.2, that is services that we provide you. We provide you with those services. Now, ideally, you should have what we call unallocated or patrol time, where I'm out making relationships with the community and say, hey, sir, how you doing? What's going on? My name is, Sheriff Norris, and I'm your community deputy. If you see anything suspicious, don't hesitate to give us a call. That's what we should be doing. However, so where your budget should be, what we should shoot for is in that 1.8 range.
One more here, if you can comment on it. I've been on 3 ride-alongs now, one each shift. And it's an interesting and educational experience to see exactly what and how. And, you realize that someday it could be totally slow, another day it could be slammed. So it's really, and I intend to go on many, many more to try and keep a feel for this. But what I would find is that for the most part, and I understand you need a backup. A call will occur, say a domestic, and one instance, one night, we arrived at the scene basically, but up the street a little bit, and had to wait 10-15 minutes before, and understandably, the deputy would approach the house. But there's what's happening in those 10 or 15 minutes is unknown and could be tragic. So there are those times where certainly I'm thinking we need another deputy in the neighborhood. But then other times, and I understand being visible and patrol is also a major part of just driving around, but it's somewhat, this is probably a poor term of downtime, not reacting to a call. And as I look at it, I go, well, if you had 2 deputies at the same time now at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night.
And we want a degree of that. We actually want to shoot for about 50% of your patrol time during the day should be your proactive time, where you're going to triple play and you're going to Razzles and you're going to some of these locations that are frequent, some of the big box stores, some of your alcohol establishments. I don't mean to point anybody out.
I guess my last point is bail forfeiture. I've had discussion with it each time I've driven, and I believe I brought it up here, and it's been expressed that is a source of funding. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so bail forfeiture, it's basically an agreement through the courts or through the prosecuting attorney's office where somebody doesn't plead guilty to a specific fine. And Fonda probably talks about this way better than I do, but they plead guilty to it's a misdemeanor usually, and it's a fine so if somebody's speeding, instead of paying a $90 fine, they do a bail forfeiture, a bond forfeiture, and it usually costs them a couple $100s to do it, but it doesn't go on their traffic record. And those funds go back to the city.
Roughly, on a speeding ticket or what have you, what amount would go back to the city?
I think on a speeding ticket, it's around $57, I think, goes to the city.
A whole 57.
What's that?
A whole 57.
Yeah, but I mean, if you add those things up, and it would vary depending on your DUI. Would that be in the picture there?
Those are all misdemeanors already.
So it's just infractions.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And the other point to that is that you also have to include the time for the prosecutor to work all of that process. So man hours also feeds into that too. So it's not just I get $250 automatically goes into the city's coffers. There's also man hours that's deducted from that too.
And I would just like to add, I'm not a fan of using citations or traffic violations as a source of revenue.
No.
The reason we give a citation is to reduce traffic collisions in a particular area and to detour that. So I'm not a fan of,
But our traffic citations, because of the other things that are going on, are not increasing significantly.
They're going down.
The other
arrests
way
are going down.
That's what I mean. So when you look at an analysis to saying, well, our arrests are going down, traffic citations are going down, we must be doing a great job.
No, that's the opposite.
It's the fact that our unencumbered time is not there so we can do that proactive patrolling.
And if you look at those charts, it's pretty consistent because we're getting busier goodness sake, we had a barricaded suspect for hours in the city of Dalton Gardens, of all places, yesterday. But the unincorporated community is getting busier also. And we don't have some of those box stores and some of those alcohol establishments like we do here in the city of Hayden. And I can't send a one-person deputy to many calls for service here in the city of Hayden anymore.
Because they need the backup. Can you address, because we talked about early on, I think it was Thanksgiving, the DUI issue, because you don't have the patrol, and yet the results associated with was a really interesting.
So I have some conversations with people, and some of them go like this. And so, sir, if we withdrew from the DUI task force, hypothetically, then we had 0 arrests for DUI from Thanksgiving, from Wednesday until Sunday. Well, we didn't have any arrests for DUI, so there must have not been anybody driving under the influence. But we had 18 alcohol-related incidents and 4 deaths during that period of time. But we didn't have, statistically, we didn't have any arrests for DUI. And that's the same type of concept. You want arrests and citations because we want to change behavior, and that's how we do those things.
Sure. Or Mr. Mayor, may I also address one issue on that point? From a legal perspective, the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court issued a decision in 2019. We infamously call it the Clark decision. And what happened in that decision is law enforcement officers are no longer allowed to arrest for a misdemeanor not committed in their presence. So a lot of what you used to see as arrests previous to 2019 are no longer. They can write up a report, they send it to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor determines whether or not there's going to be a warrant issued or an arrest at that point. What that means is you're going to see those higher points of contact and those higher number of calls, but it's naturally decreased the number of arrests because they can't arrest on the scene for a DUI if the misdemeanor was committed not in their presence. Think about that for a minute.
And those include DUIs, those include domestic batteries that are misdemeanors, where it used to be, it was simply, we get there, we can put him, articulate the person behind the wheel of a vehicle who's intoxicated, we could arrest him, take him to jail. We don't have that ability anymore because of that case law that was established.
So as we talk about as a city council making data-driven decisions, and we talk about data-driven decision-making, I think it's important to understand all of the pieces that have gone into some of the data that you're seeing tonight and why some of those reductions in arrests have happened.
I would like to address as well, and I've only been here 6 years, so it's, it's gone on for a long time as growth. I think Hayden was less than 1,000 people when we moved here, so, and Hayden and Government Way was the only flashing light. So my parents are older. I didn't get old, but my family did.
This ain't Kansas anymore, is it?
I know. If you read the paper today, and I don't know that I could address it appropriately, after you and I talked, I had to talk to somebody. There was an arrest made in Hayden. Was it
City of Hayden?
Was it? Yeah, but it was Saturday. Was it Saturday evening?
It was Friday night.
Okay, and it was horrific. That's the best I got. And Sheriff had to call me, but the issue that I wanted to bring up is that that's been ongoing for a month.
And there's a lot of detective hours involved in that.
And those were free hours to the city of Hayden. I'm not saying free Jim somebody, but we don't pay for our detectives. And that has been going on. So how do I say this appropriately? We're on camera. So an individual who was not very old, 7 weeks?
7 weeks, yes.
And that had been going on for a while. Drug issues, we know where the drug houses are, but we don't have the capacity to be able to make arrests associated with the drug houses. We have a lot of them in Hayden. They like Hayden because we don't have 24-hour coverage. This last one hurt me the most. I don't know how you do your job. I don't know how you go home after those. But it took a month took a month. And that hurt me. I had nothing to do with it. I just was the recipient of a "Are you available?" text. But I think that's what we're looking at. Our arrests are down, traffic's down, we're doing great, other than a 4-week-old child is being abused. A group of individuals are taking drugs, selling drugs.
Stealing. I called you on the 26th also when that individual put a butane torch and killed himself here in the city of Hayden.
So that's why the data, it is what it is, but the data that we have, to think that because things are stabilized that we're doing fine is blind. And I'm grateful. I don't hate. I enjoy other things more than getting texts from you, but I'm grateful that you trust us to be able to help as best we can.
Well, we want to be your police department.
So,
we want to be your police department, so that's why I reach out to you.
Thank you.
To keep you updated.
Please do so.
But we don't want citations and arrests down, because that's what's happening across this country, and it's not a good thing. We want, with a growing population, those graphs, Mr. President, should be going like this with our population. They shouldn't be going like that.
And if I may add, the criminal element is fully aware of where, if you will, the opportune grounds are within
Brett,
the
that's
county.
the best way to say it. I was trying to, thank you. Keep going.
That's the understanding, if you will, when the criminal mind is go where there's the minimal amount of resistance. Where they don't see law enforcement is where they're going to occupy. Well, let's be honest, the city of Hayden has a lot of fine property and residences, which are prime, unfortunately, for the taking, if you will, from the criminal element. And that needs to be thought of from a perspective of each one of you being a taxpayer, the fact that you don't want to be in that vulnerable position, albeit the potential of having that.
I've been on surveillances where I overhear people saying, hey, it's too hot around here. There's too many cops around here. Let's go somewhere else. I've worked with city managers that say, hey, make the criminal element feel uncomfortable.
Go elsewhere.
So they'll go elsewhere.
Any questions?
Just, can you tell me, does the city of Dalton or the city of Hayden Lake, do they contribute to your budget?
No, well, very minimal, like 200, yeah, very, very minimally.
Dalton does because the SRO, so I don't know.
Very minimally, but they don't, Athol has 850 residents right now. But are we addressing some of these issues? Yes, we are addressing some of these issues in many ways. So, but Dalton, help me out, Stu, I think it's probably about 1,100 residents?
Yeah, 11 to 14.
Yeah, and that's, compared to the 17,000 and the calls for service that we get here.
But we're also having the same talk with them that we're having with you.
But that's where I'm going, because they have a lower levy rate, both Hayden and Dalton, than we do in the city of Hayden. So that was whether you're approaching them and saying, hey, you guys need to contribute to this. They're different than us, but they're right next to us. And
the city of Hayden Lake has their own police department.
Right, they have one. Used to be Jason, right?
Yeah.
And if I may, I would ask you as a council to reach out to your constituents and your peers from them to give them a perspective, because we're on a daily, if not a weekly, the sheriff and myself are meeting with the mayor from Dalton Gardens addressing their concerns, albeit if you think about it, they're a mostly residential area, whereas the city of Hayden has a lot of businesses, which in turn brings in a lot more people to the vicinity because of that draw. So they have issues just like you do, same but different, capacity, enormity, but the reality of it is we're dealing with them in the same capacity as we're coming to you, trying to plead the case in the sense that we want to keep this what it is and what it can be for the future for all of our residents here.
Well, one last question, if I may, and that was your number 2 item on the number of calls was Walmart. And we know that Walmart, I think at one point it was like 26.2% of all the calls to Kootenai County Sheriff's Office was Walmart. That was a few years ago. So my question is there any avenue where, I get it, Honeysuckle Beach, that's our responsibility, but is there any way we can somehow tap into Walmart's ability to contribute to the cost?
That would be a city ordinance that you would have to enact.
That's a conversation for a different day.
Is that possible to try to?
That would be, so I've seen some cities attach alcohol
numerous
licenses to,
Brett, why don't you share real quick what we've done with Walmart and that they turned it down?
Well, we have some public safety money that was through the impact fee program. We're not collecting that anymore, but we went there to see if we could do something on site to utilize that money. And I think corporate above basically said no. We tried to hear back from them and they said no.
So other than local option sales tax, which doesn't exist in Idaho, and other things, to identify a business is not something that any city that I've known of has been able to do. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the lot tax does exist, but it's for resort cities with a population less than 10,000. So we don't qualify for the lot tax.
Right.
And so, no, we could not at this stage, given the history of Walmart's being here, now go back and target them singularly to contribute disproportionately to law enforcement services beyond anyone else.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all that you do. Without giving a name, my wife, Northern Lakes Fire Protection District and Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services System Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee recommendations. How'd I do there, young man?
Fantastic.
That's not bad. And my wife still thanks you and your team more than you know, and it's been a while.
Do you have a presentation or?
And Roger,
I think we
and Councilmember Satterfield.
I think we have our consultant, Dan Westcott, on.
Okay, got it. I will.
While you're getting that ready, my wife had an accident. She was told to get in the car, so we put her in the car, and I couldn't take her more than she had shattered her leg. So it took, they looked at me, all my fire guys looked at me like, are you an idiot for getting her in the car? All we had to do was go get her, and it's a lot easier. So if you see my wife limping, it's my fault.
Mayor, President, council members, Pat Riley, formerly the fire chief for Northern Lakes Fire. You're also fire department protecting the city of Hayden and Rathdrum, Hayden Lake, unincorporated, and everything in between from Ohio Match to Prairie to include Walmart. Chief Bill Keeley with Kootenai County EMS, he's the chief officer with them. We have our consultant from Galena Consulting that is actually going to make a presentation. And how do you follow the sheriff? I know it's been provided to the council, and I think it would be more fitting to stand for any questions and let Ann make her overarching statement, and we can go from
whatever you'd like. If that's great.
Whatever you would like.
Any recommendations one way or another, council? What?
I would like to make sure Ann is still here, otherwise I'm on the hook for doing this, and then I don't even know what I'm doing. But,
I don't want you to talk. I'm right here.
But your wife was ready to do it if you couldn't, right? You know the stuff. Go ahead. Is it Galena?
Yes. It is Galena Consulting, yes, sir, here in Boise. Mayor, Council President, members of the City Council, thank you for this opportunity to brief you on the Northern Lakes and KCEMS impact fee report. Do you want me to share my screen, or would you like to go into the report?
I don't know that we need, council has all gotten the opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
We just can go right into the report, Abby.
I'll just give you the high points because I know you have a lot left to do tonight. And this is a beautiful segue from the conversation that you just talked about, both with streets and with law enforcement, is the demand of new growth on the capital improvement and operating costs for your community. As you know, Northern Lakes Fire District is your fire provider, as is the Kootenai County EMS system. I am looking at page 11, Exhibit 3.2, and there's just a chart that shows you the current demand by geographic area within the Northern Lakes District. This is just important because you will see a big red spot right around where you are.
This is not it.
No, you got to go to the other one.
Go ahead.
One more, I think.
All right. And
No, that's Kootenai County EMS. She's addressing ours.
Okay.
yes, there are two different reports. There's one for Northern Lakes and one for Kootenai County EMS.
Got it. I'll pull that up here.
There we go.
Here we go.
Yes, perfect.
Page 1132, you said?
Page 1132, correct?
Okay.
Wait, sorry, page 10, Exhibit 3.2.
Page 10, Exhibit 32.
There we go, right there, yes. You will see is the chief has identified based on his statistics, call volume, where his services are being provided and needed more and more. And as he is responding to those needs, if I head to page 12, as we've generated a projection of an annual 4% growth, so about 40% growth in his district. Remember that includes his unincorporated areas and the city of Rostrum as well. Let's see, it's Exhibit 3.4, so it's on page 12.
Got it.
There you go. Yes. This is, as I sit down with the chief and I say, okay, you're going to grow by this many new houses and this much population and non-residential square feet, and those exhibits are included in the report. This right here is his 10-year capital improvement plan that identifies the need for 2 new stations that are both 100% required by growth. They would not build new stations if there were no growth in the district. Those stations require engines, water tenders, and additional equipment. Those 3 are impact fee eligible. The additional ladder truck is something that was already needed within the district, so we are not proposing to charge growth for that. That and the other replacement of apparatus will come from their tax fund. You can see in the far right column, that is the amount that the district commissioners will need to plan to fund. That's not covered by impact fees. So out of a total $12.4 million capital improvement plan, $10.3 million of it is impact fee eligible. And if you go to the next page on Exhibit 3.5, you will see, and I know you have impact fees already, and sometimes our methodologies are different, but it should come down to the same point of the total cost of growth-related capital divided by who's coming. And in this case, we have the $10.3 million worth of capital divided by 6,886 new households, and that's our estimate over 10 years, and another 2 million non-residential square feet. Each new household then we would propose be assessed $1,302. Each non-residential square foot 65 cents. So that is what the district has determined is necessary to ensure that the level of service, i.e. response time, of your fire district to your constituents, to your residents, does not decline because of growth.
And real quick, just for clarification, because it's in different buckets, cities have the opportunity to have growth pay for itself with respect to impact fees associated with this, whereas the cities do not have that same opportunity using impact fees for police. So it's a different bucket, different focus, and that's why, just for clarification for those watching and those here, that impact fees are identified here as a source of revenue where they were not identified as a source of revenue with the previous group. So just for clarification.
I would make some clarification that the county commission is currently considering evaluating impact fees for sheriff. and the extent to which that may have some overlap or discussion with your city, since you have a contract police department. Certainly your last presentation was very relevant to that, but.
And the legislature is open to that as well. There's been numerous discussions. The legislature, many did not know that impact fees were not allowed to be used for those other buckets. So thank you for that. Sorry about the caveat.
Absolutely wonderful, yes. The landscape is changing quickly in impact fees, and so making sure that we're educating all of our clients in the cities within the state on what is eligible. As you know, the reason that the districts are coming to you is because they do not have ordinance ability, or they don't collect building permits, so they can't assess the fee. So the district is asking the city and the city of Rathdrum and the county to assess this fee on new development at the point of building permit. The same conversation is held within the Kootenai County EMS report. If we put that one up again on page 11 or exhibit 3.2, you'll see their capital improvement plan. The two facilities, one that is probably most interesting is, and I know that the chief is there tonight, is the expansion of their supply dispensary with some security and additional office. The chief's goal when looking at response time of ambulances and EMS throughout the county is to ensure that these ambulances are not pulled out of service to go all the way to the hospital to restock narcotics and other supplies. So by putting this admin building expansion where their current offices are, there will be an ability to keep those northern county ambulances in district and able to respond more quickly than they would have otherwise. That is 100% impact fee eligible. There's a little bit, 25% of the additional shop for vehicle storage we've determined is impact fee eligible, and that pretty much is because they will be purchasing 5 additional ambulances, an additional critical care, and an additional response vehicle. All of these for growth put out within all of the fire districts in the county. You can see the list of equipment. Those are items of equipment that go on that those ambulances. And the proposed impact fee to collect the growth-related part of EMS's capital program is $132 per household and 7 cents per non-residential. And the reason that amount is, of course, so small is that we are spreading that among all new growth in the entire county. So we're looking at about 30,000 new homes within the whole county. So the proportional share of people within your community is relatively small. And I would just stand with questions, or you may have questions of the chiefs.
You're in charge of that. Not sure.
Go ahead. You want to lead that? The mayor stepped out, so you're...
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. This is the first time ever. Bear with me, please. Does anybody have any questions? Ed, Sandy, council members White?
I don't.
President Roeder, I think for just a point of clarification too, if I may, just so everybody understands, the reason that you're being presented with the capitalization plans from the department is because they're required to have that capital improvement plan in place in order to seek impact fees. And the reason that they're coming to you for the impact fees, and I think she highlighted this, but I just want to make it clear, is that fire districts aren't allowed to adopt ordinances. So by Idaho code, they don't have the ability to seek the impact fees themselves. So they're reliant upon going through the city and requesting this impact fee ordinance in order to be able to collect those impact fees to pass through to them for growth to actually pay for growth. So they don't have the same benefit as the city to put their own impact fee ordinance in place.
I do have a question. Now, my question is, since the city would be, I don't know if it's the proper term, administering the impact fee because it would be paid at the time that the building permit would be taken out, which costs the city something to manage that. Is there anything...
And they should pay you for that, yes.
Who's they? Oh, so that will be part of the
part of the agreement between us and you would be the fee you would charge us to collect the,
So there'd be some manpower, and then we get reimbursed for what we have to do to take care of that business. Is that correct? Good. That's the only, other than a statement, I think impact fees are the fairest way to go. The other option is, well, raise taxes, and I'm not a supporter of raising taxes so that more people can move here. I just don't like that idea. But I do like the idea that those that impact our community are paying for that. And so this is, I think this is a super program, so thank you.
I guess I'll step right on top of that. You know, the impact fees are becoming more of an issue with just about every person that comes to the city or the area, really. And I think the need is there and has been demonstrated in so many different, not only yourselves, but schools and everything else is feeling this. So anytime, and these look pretty fair, and it appears as though the study that's been done has developed a fair impact fee, so I'm all for it too.
Sandra, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I was going to ask, could you mention again about the amount from other sources? What was that?
Yes, Councilmember, thank you. When I do this work with cities and taxing districts, I like to just do a capital improvement plan that includes all of the capital. And I give them a column that's impact fee eligible and a column that needs to come from their taxes. My background working for the Salt Lake City Council Budget Office is what helps me know it's helpful to have it all in one place, so that elected officials see the big picture and they know which part needs to come from which funding bucket. But that's really just more informational for my client than part of it's not required as part of the calculation.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Also, I had a question about Exhibit 3.5, the residential growth estimated over 10 years. Where does that number of 6,886 come from?
Thank you. We have utilized a variety of sources. We start with the most current census and then the one-year additions onto that amount. We take the county assessor's parcel data, so all parcels within the county, and they're loaded into an ArcGIS program within all of the district boundaries. There's not really a lot of accounting that takes place for the fire districts. And then we're able to isolate the different cities, look at historical building permits, identify what some of the available plats or projects that are in place are, and make our best estimate on what the trend will be over 10 years. We, again, you do have an impact fee advisory committee, and we've had one as well that has utilized, looked at all of this data and had me, change some things and look at things again. These obviously will not be the real numbers. They'll continue to change. And your advisory committee's responsibility every year is to sit down with me and look at our actual figures and trends, and then give you a report on whether or not we feel it needs to be updated.
This is a much cleaner process than the police and law enforcement. It's cleaner. The legislature is also looking at identifying impact fees as a source of revenue for the law enforcement side. I don't know that it'll pass. It's just in discussions. But this one's a much cleaner way to identify revenue as it pertains to the needs associated with the community, as well as what impact fees can be applied to be able to take care of it. So.
One more question, please, and just for clarification, the funds that will be collected if this all goes into place can only be used for capital improvements. It cannot be used for personnel. So as the district grows and needs personnel, they're going to have to use other forms of funding, either a tax increase or a bond levy or such, to raise money for additional personnel. Is that true?
That is true. What impact fees allows you to do, though, is some of that capital I need to purchase would also normally come out of my M&O budget. That frees up my operational budget. That frees up the money that I would spend to buy an ambulance to put towards personnel, since the impact fees are paying for the ambulance. But you're correct, this is only bricks and mortar and rolling stock is all we can use the fees for. But using the fees opens up some other money that we have that needs to be put away to buy new apparatus to meet this need for personnel.
So it does help you for personnel.
It does help.
That's a great.
It doesn't directly help for personnel, but it gives you a little more wiggle room when you're not buying millions of dollars worth of vehicles to put that more towards personnel.
Because we have to be careful after what happened with capitalization fees. Impact fees are not to be used, how am I doing, help me with this, for any personnel expense associated with either of those two. So you were just hypothetically.
Hypothetically, if I didn't have to spend $1 million on an ambulance.
Financial issues. How did I do?
And go ahead.
Please.
I'll say another point of clarification is the capital improvement expenses have to be for items that have a 10-year lifespan or longer. So rolling stock, they have to be careful that it's an ambulance.
It has to meet 10 years.
Yes.
I just needed for the record, Matt, I didn't want to find us in somewhere. Yeah, so thank you for the clarification in that. There's opportunities that if in fact impact fees cover certain expenses, that you have flexibility on other expenses associated. How did I do?
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, Fonda, help me if I mess up. I just want to make sure that that was crystal clear.
One last thing, and I just want to go back to our law enforcement. At one point, we were going to look at whether or not impact fees collected could be used for rolling stock, for patrol cars, if they had a 10-year useful life. Is that a possibility?
I would say at this point it is not.
It is not. The legislature doesn't want to.
Okay.
And they generally don't last 10 years.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I have no clients within the state of Idaho who keep their patrol cars up to 10 years. So.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Regarding the assets, so over what period of time will the two stations need to be built and the ladder trucks and things like that be purchased?
In the next 10 years.
In the next 10 years, okay.
That's the plan with the
Based
capital
upon
improvement plan. It's a 10-year plan, 10-year lifespan, and a build-out. And the things that are not included in that are things that we need to do, we need to have already done or be doing, but those aren't part of the impact fees.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to let you show off for a minute. Your response times are phenomenal. Would you like to share those, or you don't have to, but your response times have been phenomenal. So
I think you're being very gracious, Mr. Mayor, but
not for you maybe, but we're grateful.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're much like the sheriff. We're a considerably higher amount of response time just due to the extreme call volume.
And I didn't mean that. It's just you guys are making a silk purse out of a sow's ear with the things that are going on, and I'm very grateful for that. So, any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. No action needed? Yeah. We're going to take a 5-minute health break, if that's okay. And 4C will be request to amend bluegrass. So we'll move forward from there.
Hey, how you doing? Like a sweetheart. Well, we have another procedure, so it's an outpatient, which the last two have been
Donna, you're still with us? Go ahead, Donna and Zach, I'll turn the time over to you.
Good evening, council.
So, hi.
Hi.
So this is a request that was turned in to amend the Bluegrass annexation. And at that point, the annexation, when it occurred, it was owned by that really long name, Biophoton Engineering and Research, PA Profit Sharing, which was owned by James Kimball. And that's what the agreement is in name of. And the request is by Core Technology Campus, LLC, where Thomas McNabb, I believe, was going to attend via GoTo, and I believe Scott MacArthur is in the audience if he's made it back from Priest River, or Priest Lake. Next slide.
Just for the record, Scott is here, correct? I just want to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Could you push? There you go. Thank you. Okay, so each one of the council packets had a memo and the applicant's narrative and a proposed language that they'd like to amend the agreement on. I'm not going to go into an extensive bit, but I just did want to highlight a couple of points within the memo. The property is located on the southeast corner of West Hayden Avenue and Hutter Road. At the time that the property was annexed in 2013, it was annexed with the north 300 feet being commercial and the remainder of it being single-family residential. In 2017, it came forward and we did a request for a zone map amendment, which was granted, that made the whole parcel zoned as commercial. At that point in time, commercial did allow for both a commercial use. It allowed for multifamily by conditional use permit.
Donna, I hate to ask, we're having a hard time.
Hello?
Yes, could you call?
Yeah.
Can she,
Turn off video.
or turn off video? That could help. If you just turn off your video and see if that helps us, go ahead now.
All right, is that better?
Much better.
Is that better? Good?
Yes.
All right, awesome. I can do that. So going back to, let's see, so in 2017, the whole property was zoned as commercial. At that point in time, commercial allowed for both commercial as well as multifamily by conditional use permit. Since that time, and also at the time of annexation, residential densities were determined in the comprehensive plan, but the plan is a guide and the code is the law. And so it was kind of a direction that we would move those densities from the comp plan and into code. And so when that all occurred, the densities that would be allowed in this area would be determined based on the zone that the land would be zoned at. So then the code, the title changed, and commercial no longer allows for a multifamily component, but mixed use does. And this piece of property is in the mixed use zone of the future land use map. This is not a request to change the zone. The request is to amend the annexation agreement. And next slide. So the request, in the memo, the request, should the council approve the request, is to change the language in 7.5 of the condition of approval from what it shows there, which addresses that as a condition of annexation and in order to partially mitigate the effects of annexation upon the city, the owner expressly agrees to limit any development of the area to be annexed to a density of no greater than 4 units per gross acre as a condition of annexation. And the request to amend this annexation agreement is to amend it to say the owner can subdivide the described land with a density equal to or less than the City of Hayden approved zoning designations for described lands. I also want to note that in my memo, I had stated that there is a process, and that we had said, and folks that live in areas or have property in areas that are different now that we've got the Imagine Hayden process finished, and they may benefit from a change to their zoning. They kept asking staff whether they should request the annexation amendment prior to a zone map amendment or with their zone map amendment. And as I said in the memo, there are pros and cons to both. This applicant chose to request that at this time. We have not, I do not believe, we don't have anything that says that they are requesting a zone map amendment. So with that, I stand for questions, and Scott MacArthur, I believe, is there to answer questions as well.
Questions?
I have a first question. Can you go back to your map, please, Donna?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me, what are we talking about here? I see a parcel in a blue line. Is that what we're talking about within that boundary of the blue line?
That is correct. It is bounded on the north by West Hayden Avenue, by the west by Hutter Road, and on the south side is unincorporated Kootenai County, and that's an Avista substation.
Okay, and then you're telling me that...
Please identify, Zach, the property that we're trying to identify.
Just that piece.
The property outlined in the light blue line.
In 2003, it was split zone. Can you give me an idea what that looked like in 2013, excuse me?
It's like 300 feet plus or minus.
Go ahead.
South of Hayden Avenue was
Can you use that marker?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
As long as it's not a permanent marker.
Go ahead.
So,
Donna, go ahead, Scott.
Donna, I'm trying to help you, Donna.
Donna,
Sorry.
Scott's here, and he's going to talk.
Scott MacArthur.
Okay, good. I'll butt out.
No, you don't. And I feel bad Donna couldn't be here. She put a lot of work into this over the past several months. So just go back where Donna was. This originally, this whole corridor here was zoned commercial. This 300 feet south of Hayden. And this remainder piece was residential.
And that was what was annexed into the city originally, that configuration?
That's how it was annexed into the city.
Okay.
Commercial, residential, and Mr. McNabb actually owned both parcels here. This piece, now what it looks like now is, this is commercial, this entire piece, and he's since sold this piece. This is commercial, this is residential.
How is it zoned right now, Scott?
Right now,
just for
this is-
everybody.
Yeah, this is commercial. This piece is all commercial right here. And this is zoned commercial right here.
This
is residential.
Go ahead, Matt.
Is Core Green part of this?
So Core Green is just an entity that Mr. McNabb owns Core Greens. This is Core Technology Campus here that owns this property here. And the goal, and there's a lot of history, and I won't go into the history lesson, but basically the Hutter bypass will take 300 feet of Mr. McNabb's property here. And so with this zone commercial, and it's a little bit more exaggerated than that, it's here. So this would be his remainder piece of his property here. And then he sold this piece of property, and there's a boundary line adjustment that's in the process right now that basically essentially splits this little nub here. So his piece is getting smaller, and just through the process. And so to make this property the biggest benefit to the city, we're not here to ask for a zone change. We're just here to ask to amend one little sentence in this annexation amendment, or this annexation agreement, to just, if somebody were to come through in the future and go, the biggest and best use of this property is something different, and it's limited by 4 units per acre, and the city's like, well, that doesn't make sense. We don't want that to be the issue down the road and have to go through this at that time. We're just here tonight to say, let's just fix this in the agreement now, this little sentence in the agreement now, So that this parcel is going to remain commercial, which you can't develop residential in the city in commercial zone property. So all we're asking tonight is to just fix that in the event in the future something changes.
So where is the trailer or storage thing in the tractor? Right there, okay.
There's a well there, that's a high producing well on the property. And this is the KDC substation.
I could pull up the zoning map if it would help, just for a visual. Nope.
It's easier to see, I mean,
I'd say,
Go ahead.
okay, that strip that you drew up there, where you drew the boundary, what is developable, I guess? What is the intent to develop? You drew up the boundary for the Hutter bypass and all that. And what is the approximate acreage of that developable piece that we're really talking about? If that's going to be Hutter bypass there.
Oh, it's a considerable amount of property. I mean, this parcel itself right now is 17 acres here with this,
Right.
almost 18 acres.
Right.
And so you're taking out about, you're left over with about 11 acres after that.
So that strip that you drew, the boundary for the Hutter, and then the boundary from the other side there?
Yeah, the remainder piece is around 10 to 11.
10 acres we're probably talking about in the middle.
This will remain about 10 acres.
10 acres.
We don't know yet until they develop the bypass and then
Roughly.
They're reserving this 300 feet.
So it sounds like you anticipate them waiting until the Hutter bypass, if ever, whatever happens with the Hutter, comes up through there before there's any plan to develop those 10 or 11 acres.
The comp plan, the way it's written right now, has designation as a mixed use designation for that property. And so with it zoned commercial, no residential, it might be a prime location for residential piece of property that the city aspires to see that on the property. Right now, there's no residential development on the property, but that annexation agreement is still limited to 4 units per acre. So if some sort of code changed, and you're going to be along a major corridor, which usually is where you see a higher density development as well. And so we're just trying to get ahead of the process because of that one statement that was annexed with a plethora of projects or properties in the city at one time when they were all brought in. It was just a blanket statement of residential allows 4 units per acre in the city of Hayden.
I understand it, but I think what I'm trying to understand is, at this point in time, this property is not anticipated to be developed until the Hutter bypass, basically?
No, actually, we're looking at some development. We've looked at a lot of opportunities here, and more recently, this line has started to encroach more and more, and so it just kind of changes. We've worked with staff on several master plans for this property over the years.
So you are looking to develop it soon?
Right, correct. He has plans, especially with the sale of this property here. He does have plans for development on this property sooner than the Hutter bypass.
And the intention, it sounds like, is most likely going to be...
His intended use to start would be a commercial product to start with a large open space. But we haven't even brought forth a pre-application meeting into the city.
Right.
You confuse me because you just said a commercial product, but you're talking about a change to the annexation agreement will allow up to 4 houses per acre. That's residential.
The annexation agreement is written right now at 4 units per acre. The parcel is zoned commercial. If we came forward with a portion of the property and a commercial aspect, it doesn't allow for a residential aspect to be put on the property in the event that somebody in the future wants to put residential on the property. And Mr. McNabb sells the property to somebody who may want to, desires to put residential on the property. We don't know. But right now it's limited to 4 units per acre on the property. The property is zoned commercial. It is being taken up largely by the Hutter bypass. And the remainder piece, the biggest and best use of the property makes sense, especially with what he's giving up here for that Hutter bypass.
It still confuses me because you said 4 units per acre. Is that 4 residential units per acre?
Correct.
But then you're saying it's commercial, so how does that work?
So it was, the way it was annexed into the city, let's go back to that. It was annexed into the city at 4 units per acre. There's a blanket. Zoning or not zoning, you can change, it didn't matter if we changed the zoning, the property would never be developed any more than 4 units per acre. So we're just looking to strike that statement from the annexation agreement in the event in the future a portion of it is rezoned to mixed use, which would allow a higher density than 4 units per acre in that section.
Which could be residential, not commercial.
Correct.
So you're looking at most likely for more flexibility, is to allow that to be rezoned into mixed use, which can give you a higher density residential product in that. So the other question I have would be with what stipulations or does the Hutter bypass plan have any controlling effect on what you do with that property?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a high visible front piece of property.
But do they have any legal, are there any legal ramifications on what that proposed project can control what you do on your property right now?
Councilmember Broder, this is Donna. Their annexation agreements have a setback requirement. That's what Scott is talking about, so that they have an area that they're required to set back for the Hutter, in preparation of the Hutter bypass, that they cannot build in that area of setback.
So does
that answer your question?
Is that in force right now? You cannot build on that 200?
As part of the annexation agreement, it was a 295-foot setback, and they've since increased it to 300. In that arbitrarily, hey, we're not going to allow you to build anything in this 300-foot strip Hutter or this first 300 feet of Hayden. Nothing can be developed on that property.
They haven't purchased that property for right away at this point?
It's reserved.
Oh, no, nothing's been purchased.
I heard they bought some.
They're trying, but it's very little. So it's fun to try to listen to the ping pong back and forth. So the answer to your question, I don't know if that's the question that you wanted, is when the bypass buys property, the bypass doesn't have any, they do not control any zoning or usage of that property.
Correct.
That, and I think that, I don't know if that's.
No, the
that's
question would
I
be
listened
right
to.
now, do they have any legal effect on what you can do with that property right now?
That 300 feet, they have control. We cannot develop anything in that property.
Which we did proactively.
Yep.
But I don't know that it's going to come through, but they don't have any, they're just buying it to build.
As part of the original annexation agreement in 2013, that swath of land.
Oh, that was put into place, that agreement?
That was part of the document.
Got it. Okay, that's what I'm looking
And
at.
I think that's in your packet too.
Yeah, well, it helps to go right to the source, so
Sorry
thank
about
you.
that,
Okay,
Mayor, I'd like to
please.
ask a question. So with the Hutter bypass, would that be an exit point for the bypass onto Hayden Avenue?
There have been so many renditions of this. I would say yes, but I can't
Okay.
say. I would say yes, but I don't.
That's changed.
Oh, it has changed?
A ton.
Oh, okay.
They don't know, all they know is that what it can look like, and they don't know when.
Okay.
And they don't know how it's going to look. Is Hayden Avenue the right place? Is Prairie the right place? Is nowhere the right place? And that's part of that.
Okay.
That's a great question.
And I think that's why that line keeps moving, and Mr. McNabb is such a good sport, he's just, whatever. So,
Also, is Hayden Avenue going to be widening there? Is that going to take part of your property as
there's
well?
a typical street section that the city of Hayden engineering staff has selected, and it'll have 110 foot through this portion. It's similar to what's being developed right now on the frontage for the Viking property.
Okay.
Well, one more question, unless Ed, do you have something, Ed? So do you have does your, Mr. McNabb have a executed agreement with the Hutter bypass or KMPO or whoever is going to develop that says that you cannot develop that 300 feet, or is this just an agreement between McNabb and the city?
There was an agreement originally between Mr. Kimball and the city as part of the annexation, and it was passed on to as a successor.
So the bypass group or organization has no agreement for this?
Right, they're saying reserve this area, and they may come in and only use 100 feet of it, we don't know yet. And they're just saying reserve this area so that we can develop the Hutter bypass. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we need this swath reserved so that we can get this built.
So we as a city are honoring what KMPO wants to do?
I believe that was, I wasn't there in 2013, but I think that was the intent with Mr. Kimball's property was to reserve that area. And I think that, I can't speak to properties north or south, but how that looks.
And we don't know if it's going to be on an angle. I don't think it's going to be perpendicular.
Correct.
And so it depends on where it comes out, it depends on what happens. There's so much, and there's so much.
It gets to the point where, just tell me when you guys are ready and we'll lay it out.
Okay, one more question. If we do not grant what you want, what will they do with the property?
I can't say. And the only reason we're here to make that request is we can't plan for the property. We can plan for the property under this thing. This really has no bearing on it because we are commercial. There's no residential in the commercial property. It just limits the potential for any future zone change to match the comp plan that's adopted by the city. And so the biggest and best use of the property is all we're here for tonight, just to make sure that that option's on the table. We're not here to ask for a zone change. We're just here to ask for that line to be just revised. All we're saying is that the property will be annexed, or the annexation agreement will now state that it'll go with the zoning that's designated to the property. So that when you get to the point, if the city council does decide to grant a zone change in the future on the parcel or a portion of the property, then it doesn't have to go through this step at that time.
Any legal clarification from either of you, and I don't know how you can sit for 2.5 hours there, my friend, so bless you. What would be the ramifications associated with approval or not approving or denying this request?
So as indicated in Donna's report to you, your options this evening are to approve, deny, or to approve in an amended form. There's no preclusion that the applicant doesn't come forward again at some point in the future and make this same request associated with the zone change. They very well could do that. And there's no ramifications this evening to denying the request because they annexed under this condition. So this is a contractual arrangement between the landowner at the time and the city when the annexation request was made. The point I would caution you on is that circumstances change over time, and you do have an obligation to evaluate all of the circumstances as they have changed over time. 2013 annexation agreement, 2019 Imagine Hayden revision, major revision to your comprehensive plan, and with that sort of heavy points of discussion, your future land use map. So I think the message that I would like to send to the council in answering that question is that you do have to evaluate this application at this point in time under these circumstances and make the decision that's best for the city now, knowing that they're not precluded from coming back and making this request again. Yes.
Off of what you just said there and bringing in the workshop and the potential modifications, amendments, what have you, to the future land use map, can that be considered in our decision now, basically needing to consider that it may not be what it is on the future land use map in a period of time down the road here?
No, you are required to evaluate applications and requests based on the rules and the laws that are in place at the time of the request.
Okay.
But it doesn't preclude the fact that in the future land use map that hasn't been adopted, this has a different zone
Designation.
direction, designation, and that this will allow, based on present law, some functionality to the property instead of waiting for an anticipated or not anticipated change. How did I do?
You did great, and I'll say you are correct.
Okay, so even though it's not done, there's still the side that says, okay, if in fact, based upon future land use map information, this zone might be capable, all their request is doing is saying, we don't care about that. We just simply want to identify what's best use at present and deny or approve with conditions. But is that a fair, because it's hard to navigate through this, and this isn't the only one. The next one's going to be the same type thing, so.
The same analysis. You're in a difficult situation because your future land use map has not been adopted.
Correct.
But you have some code changes that have been approved, and you have an amendment to your comprehensive plan.
But you said the future,
What?
future land,
I thought he just said it had not been adopted.
The future land use map has been adopted.
So you have a future land,
Not implement, okay, we have to,
So, man, this gets to the
yeah,
zoning map,
and this is okay,
and a future land use map.
because the council needs to understand where we are right now.
And Donna might want to weigh in on this, but there is zoning that applies to this, but the future land use map, with the changes with the comprehensive plan, designated that area as mixed use. As a suggestion or designation.
Oh, that zone doesn't
in the
exist, and
plan.
that's where I was going.
That has been approved.
Okay,
It does exist.
Not being made.
I'm sorry, yeah, but it doesn't, I
I'm not
know.
trying to, I'm just trying to
Go ahead.
clarify.
And this is just the first step. We're not coming forward tonight to say, let's change the annexation agreement and also ask for a zone change. We're just coming saying, let's change the annexation agreement in the event that in the future, Mr. McNabb or somebody else wishes to change a portion or the parcel to mixed use as identified in the current future land use map. Does that make sense?
Fair.
Okay.
could in the future, they bring, simultaneously, they bring this request for, their current request to amend the 4 units at the same time as they say, and if that is approved, we would like the zone change.
yes.
Okay.
Sure.
And my message before, not to make it confusing, was just to say, you have to evaluate this request based on what's in place at this moment.
Question I have would be, does this, if we grant this request, does it change the setback or you can't develop the 300 feet on the west side? Does that change that at all? Or is that always, that's in place if we make this zone change or the request change?
Until KMPO and the city of Hayden tell us, here's your new boundary, there's nothing we can do in that area. We could develop, non-structures or mobile structures, but you can't, there's no plans for that area. It doesn't change that. All we're asking tonight is just change the one sentence. We're not asking to change anything, any setbacks, any zoning, nothing on the property. Just
So if that does get built as residential, 4 houses per acre, you could conceivably have a highway right next to it.
Correct.
By the way, I've been asked by council to make sure any comments that we make, we can't speak over each other, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm probably the worst one out.
So Councilman, tonight it's zoned commercial, the property is, so there's no residential aspect of that property today with the current zone.
Even with this change.
Even with this change.
With or without.
What, Donna?
I said with or without this change.
Right.
There's no residential allowed on this property because it's zoned commercial.
Commercial. Any other questions? Because D is going to be just like this one, so I don't want to, so do we have,
I have a
go ahead,
question.
please.
Okay, just because I'm new, I don't understand these things, help me understand. So if this is unincorporated county land, then what makes this a city?
It's
decision?
annexed into the city.
It's
In
annexed.
2013, it was annexed into the city.
Okay.
So it's city.
Good question. As we do this stuff, so that's part of that annexation request. So they came to the city and said, we want to be a part of the city. And we said, we only want you based upon these parameters. Donna, any other thoughts?
No, they are all 3 separate, and they should be reviewed all 3 separately.
We will.
And the decisions are different because the requests are different. I would note that.
Thank you. So right now, we're looking at PZE-21-0131, which is what, Scott, you identified, right?
Correct.
Okay, when we get to 21-0087, where is that? No,
Wanda, do you want to have them look at all of them in context, or you want them to have them stand on their own?
they need to stand on their own. I just want to make sure, can we just, go ahead, Fonda, tell me what I'm supposed to do.
We have them each listed as separate action items, and they are separate requests. We
Understand, it's not, we're not talking about the second, okay, never mind. I understand.
Okay, I'm getting a better handle on more questions, please.
Sure.
So on page 1 of our packet page or group here, talking about 7.5, it's showing what was originally in the annexation agreement, and then the second paragraph below that is saying what they want it to be, correct?
The from to the to.
Yeah. So the original...
It's okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the original agreement said no more than 4 units per gross acre. But if we approve this change where it doesn't give a number there. So I guess the question is, what is the greatest density that could be built based on the change to?
Donna, can I address this?
So in today's world, under commercial, you'd have a residential density of 0. So they wouldn't get a higher density unless they requested a zone map amendment. And what they're asking for here is that whatever the zone is, potentially in some point in the future, if should a zone map amendment request be approved, that their density would be whatever the density allowance is in the zone that they would be approved for. And if they were to follow the future land use map, then that would follow a mixed use zone density.
So in theory...
Not asking for a zone map amendment.
So I understand that, but in theory, they could go to a much higher density than 4 per acre if that whole process, as you described, occurred.
If
they would have to come back to council.
Right.
Because right now it'd be 0. It would go 4 to 0.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And then the other.
But they have every right to go to P&Z and then say, we want mixed use. And then if you follow all the rules, then we'll have to
come back here.
And come back, and then we,
120 to 150 potential at 10 acres.
Okay, we just got to say that, so just make sure that we can hear. Yeah.
Okay, I think an answer to what, if they came back and if they got the mixed use, if I'm not mistaken, under current mixed use, 12 to 15 units per acre, 10 or 11 acres, whatever this slip is here, would have a potential for 120 to 150 dwelling units in those 10 to 11 acres. If it were to come back to a zone change for mixed use and the mixed use were granted, that would be, I think, what you'd be looking at within your dwelling units per acre there.
But to change this, just because I have to stay on task, I know, and thank you for the help. This won't allow any density with respect to that land use.
For residential purposes.
For residential
but they could build commercial and develop as the original agreement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions this request specific to PZE-21-0131?
I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that we deny this request number PZE-21-0131.
0131 for clarification.
0131.
Oh, what's wrong here?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to deny. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Action item D, request to amend Bluegrass Robert C. Farr Annexation Agreement, PZE-21-0087 by OO Holdings.
So I believe that Scott Krajak is on the line to speak to questions related to this, and Ray Kimball is also on the line to speak on GoTo. to speak on behalf of this request. I put my memo together for this request and for 4E simply because they were both, we only really heard a part of the request on April 27th, and these were both tabled at that meeting. So just as a matter of, again, context to the conversation, in 2013, they were annexed, the property was annexed for, Holding Fund. Okay, gotta get the right person in the right place.
That's the correct.
Okay, so the Holdings, in 2013, the property was annexed, and in 2019, the Coeur d'Alene Airport Master Plan identified a portion of the property to be within the airport critical zone. The city adopted the future land use map, and it identified that a portion of this area, again, these pictures are in your memo, so I did not pull them up for conversation. The location is shown on your PowerPoint on the screen, and it's adjacent to Prairie Avenue on the south side. And its north boundary would be what Cranston would be if it extended through. And it's completely vacant farmland today. The future land use map does identify that should this property request a zone map amendment in accordance with the future land use map, that it would not be allowed to change the whole property to single-family residential as what was originally intended at the time of its annexation, because of where it lands adjacent to Prairie Avenue and in conjunction with the airport critical zones within the flight area. And those can be really well seen on your memo on page 8 in your memo. You can see how this piece of property actually is divided up in the future land use map as 4 separate zone maps. So should they come forward at the time of a development, should they request a zone map amendment and develop this in conformance with the future land use map, it is different than the residential single families that they were zoned at the time of their annexation. Their request is different in the fact that it's requesting that all of 7.4 just be stricken so that it would default to whatever zone they were at the time of development. So if it was stricken today, if 7.4 was stricken and it eliminated the, can you move to the next slide, Zach, really quick, and then we'll back up to this one. If it was stricken today, this 4 not greater than 4 units per acre, the condition of annexation, would default back to single-family residential, where your minimum lot sizes are 8,250 square feet, which we're averaging at about 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre, simply because of taking out the roadways and what have you. So with that, I stand for questions. I do have, when we hit the next one, I'll have it's basically the same answer as this one, but I have another graphic on the next slide, the next 2 slides that shows where that's at. Again, trying to keep them separate because they do have different issues as they develop.
So we're talking about PZE-21-0087. Is there anyone else online that would like to comment with respect to the property ownership and change and this request?
This is Ray Kimball with Whipple Consulting Engineers. I'm here representing the owner. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Very well. You have a good radio voice.
All right. Well, so I think the record is, and Donna's memo is pretty clear. I'll take you back to 2013 when this was annexed. The comprehensive plan was pretty straightforward for this part of the city. The future land use map said it should be, I think it was 1 to 5 units per acre, something of that nature. And so in an effort to conform to that and conform to the comprehensive plan at the time, the 4 unit per acre density restriction was put into the annexation agreement. Now the comprehensive plan has changed. Sounds like it's very likely going to change again in the near future. And it is guaranteed to change in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, because I think there's an interval by which the comprehensive plan does change. And so, as you know, the comprehensive plan is a living document. It changes. And what we are asking for is an elimination of a clause in the annexation agreement that allows the property in the future to change with the comprehensive plan. And of course, as city council, you are, as well as the city, the residents of the city are all involved in the architecture of the comprehensive plan. And that is something that is ever evolving. And so what we are simply asking for here is not an increase in density. It is an elimination. It's what we consider to be kind of a housekeeping item. It allows us to strike an item in an annexation agreement that is at this point a little bit dated, and to move forward with the current comprehensive plan and any future comprehensive plan as it may exist in the future. And I think that's pretty much it. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I'm going to go to Fonda first and then back, if that's okay. Fonda, tell us what, in as good a way possible, please help council members and myself understand the ramifications of this decision with respect to the request being made by the applicant.
So let's have Donna just do a bullet point first of how it's currently zoned. And again, just have her restate what the density allowance would be as it's currently zoned.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah. Today is zoned single-family residential. The whole piece of property it was annexed in as single-family residential. And as our code allows for, in the single-family residential, it allows for minimum lot sizes of 8,250 square feet. When you develop that out with roads and right-of-way dedications, what have you, we found that works out to just about 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre.
That's present.
Correct. Historically, that's historically.
So what will this request, how will this request change that?
Are you looking at Donna or me?
Donna. Sorry, Donna. Donna, how will this request change that?
Did we lose her?
Did we lose Donna? I wonder if we lost her here, because there's nothing green or red. Donna got tired.
I don't know if it times out, maybe.
It could.
It says she's still on go-to meeting.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
You ran out of time.
Yeah.
We probably...
2.5 hour max.
You entered no digits. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Zach, can you, pop that out so I can see what the code is again? Like go to the settings.
You entered no digits. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
On the box.
Sorry,
No,
up.
keep going up.
Right here?
Up a little more.
You entered no digits.
We aren't receiving your number entry due to a possible issue with...
Hey, lady, come on.
Jeez.
I don't know who that lady is.
Please enter your access code followed by the...
Sister.
Not nice.
She's not nice.
To enable audio control, this conference will now be recorded.
Donna? Donna, can you say something? Please.
Enable audio control.
Donna, we do not hear you.
Okay, how about now?
We do hear you now. So I think we got...
I got to turn off something I'm echoing. How about now?
Better. So we heard you probably for council purposes and for the public, what is it right now and what will this request change in terms of land usage?
So today, the property is zoned single-family residential. And single-family residential is got a minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet. And historically, it's works out to about 3 to 4 houses per acre in a single-family residential. You take out all the right-of-way and the dedications, what have you. That's what you generally get at the end of the day. But if you look on page, I think this is like
these pages aren't
page 8 of the memo to staff, you'll see a graphic that shows that this property, because of its location to the part of the critical zones of the airport, is really showing up as being partially commercial, partially mixed use, partially mixed residential, and partially single family residential. So should they wish to develop in this area, the request is that if we strike this paragraph, effectively whatever the zone density is, should they request a zone map amendment and receive a zone map amendment, they would get the density that would be allowed within the area of that zone map amendment.
Thank you. Any questions for Donna?
No zone map amendment request has been received as of this date.
One question I have is, what's the proximity of the flight plan of the airport with this property? Flight path, I guess. How close is it to the airport, and do we have planes that will be flying over this area?
It is showing in the flight path in the critical zone. On that diagram, it does show the airport critical zone and and how those overlay over this property.
It's in figure 4.
Again, that would be, at the time of development, they'd have to submit information to the airport, get airport conversation with them. That would all be required at the time of any future development as well.
It seems to me it would be prudent to put less people, compress them into an area that's within that zone of the airport. That's just a comment.
So, Mr. Mayor, to answer the question that you asked me previously, the striking of this provision in this agreement right now would not substantially change what they're allowed to do on the property at this moment. And I think we go back to the same question of what if they come in and ask for a zone map amendment? And Donna just said it perfectly. They're in the inner critical zone. That zone map amendment would trigger notifications and input by the airport, which also then brings in the FAA and the ITD guidelines as to what level of density could be allowed in that zone.
Not unlike when it was annexed into the city.
Correct.
With whatever modifications would have taken place between 2013 and present.
And to respond to President Roeder's comment, I just wanted the public to know that there is another opportunity for a density conversation if a zone map amendment were requested.
Thank you. Donna, any comment?
totally, I agree with Fonda.
Thank you. Any questions from any member of the council? Hearing none, we have, the council can make a motion to deny or to approve with modifications or deny the request to strike the language of 7.4 of the agreements as identified and discussed. Do we have a motion?
I will. I'll motion to deny the request to amend Bluegrass Bar Annexation Agreement PZE 210087.
I second it.
We have a motion to deny, and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Thank you. This is E, action item, request to amend Bluegrass Armstrong Annexation Agreement, PZE-21-0095 by Viking Construction.
Correct. So this is, I'm just, again, all of the same kind of conversation occurs, and they're also part of the Bluegrass Annexation Agreement. This property was annexed in 2013, and in that top left-hand corner, kind of right there, the lift station was constructed on this northwest corner of the property, and it was deeded to the city. Also in 2019, the Carrington Meadows first addition on the north side of the property, and it's kind of out of this, but you can kind of see Carrington Meadows where Zach's Mouth is. The first edition of that required park dedication, and the park dedication, we had park area that was proposed to occur and required to occur as part of the annexation directly north of this piece of property. And so we really didn't think we wanted two 15 or 10 acre parks, 8 acre parks, whatever, both on the north side of Hayden Avenue. And the school property is south of this property. So as a requirement of that Carrington Meadows first edition, they were required to take their required park area that was on the north side and move it to the south side of the property. So this piece of property will have a park in the 12 to 16 acre number, probably closer to the 12. Additionally, in 2019, a special use permit, now called a conditional use permit, was requested and granted for multifamily dwelling along Hayden Avenue, and because that was an allowed use in the commercial zone by conditional use permit, as it was anywhere there was commercial in the city at that time. It's important to note that that project has been in the works since 2019, and this is 2022, and there have been no certificates of occupancy issued to date, although those are coming. The 2020 Honeysuckle Park subdivision, which is where these Carrington apartments, this 80 acre piece is now it has a preliminary plat that was requested, but the applicant put it on hold pending completion of the Imagine Hayden update. So that's kind of a history of that particular piece of property. If you scroll down through the memos and want to look at the land uses, they're kind of halfway through your memo, and I'm getting there now, so just bear with me. I believe that Jakaya may be in the audience, and Harold may be in the audience, but Ray is here as well. If you scroll down to page 35 of 74 of your memo, that shows you what the future land use map shows this area to be shown as on a comprehensive plan map. Today, it's got about 300 feet plus or minus south of Hayden Avenue, similar to our first request. Scott could probably go up there and draw it for you. On there is today it's zoned commercial, and the remainder of the property is zoned single family residential.
And Zach,
And I
if you
will turn
just
that
scroll
over
up a little
to Ray
bit,
or whoever.
that's where the data is.
The description of the land use here, did you want me to, so this is a future land use map. Here we have the description, and then this is sewer flow data. Donna, just let me know what you want me to display here. I have the memo up.
That's fine. If you scroll back to page 34, it pretty much shows what the land use is today.
Okay.
That's where, good. Is the applicant here? Does the applicant want to make a comment or presentation, provide information?
Mayor Griffith.
Yes.
This is Ray Kimball again for the record, here on behalf of Viking Construction. I would say ditto, but that didn't work too well last time. So what I would like to say, and Zach, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down to that comprehensive plan. So when you look at that map, so what we have in the purple is pretty much already apartments.
Wondering about that.
And then there's kind of the orange, and then there's the yellow. What a change to this would allow us to do would be to potentially come forward with a future land use application, zone map amendment application that would go in front of Planning Commission and then in front of City Council at 2 public hearings to be decided upon at a future date if we were to request a mixed residential zoning in that little orange area there. And so what does that do for the city of Hayden? What it does is it allows the city to entertain a different type of housing product from what exists essentially today. As you are probably all well aware, the city's land use or the home price, the median home price in the city of Hayden is well over $500,000. And while that seems like a bargain for people coming from Portland and Seattle and California, for the people who are recently graduated from high school and working at jobs, or maybe graduated from college and grew up here and want to move back to their hometown, they don't have much of an opportunity at $500,000 to do that, to achieve a home ownership in a meaningful way at a reasonable price. And so the mixed residential zone, I don't know if there's any of it in the city of Hayden yet, but it does offer some flexibility and some interesting opportunities for a different type of home, for a different housing product, for something that could be much more affordable to those who have grown up here their entire lives and are now being priced out of the market by those who have decided that North Idaho is a great place to live and better than where they live now. And so, although this particular thing tonight, like I said before, does not change the zoning, it does not constitute any sort of a carte blanche approval or even sniff that direction when it comes to a zone change. What it does do is it eliminates a legacy from the old comprehensive plan and allows us to move forward with a new vision that very well could be something much better for the current and future residents of the city of Hayden. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Kai, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just going to acknowledge that I was present here at the meeting.
Okay.
You had asked it.
I do have a question.
Thank you. No, we're going to have some. I'm sure there's a lot of them. Councilmember DePriest.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Kimball. You just referred to the lack of affordable housing. And could you give me an estimate? I know you can't give me a hard number, but just to give me an idea, I guess to give the people present an idea of if you were to complete one of these mixed residential units in that area today, what would it go on the, what would the asking price be roughly?
Mr. DePriest, I honestly have no idea. I am probably the absolute worst person to ask for a market analysis on real estate, especially on something that is new. So City of Hayden doesn't have any of this. We haven't even, in all honesty, looked too hard at it because it's so far in the future for us, and it's something that isn't even on our, it's not really even on our radar to look at. We have an existing application into the city, and this is just, the city staff asked us, back when we had this first turned this in this application, they said, hey, wait a second, we got this comp plan change coming up, and there might be some changes that come through that would benefit you guys. Do you want to hold off? And we said, sure, no problem, we'll hold up. And in this case, the density restriction is one of the things that would hold that up. But to answer your question, it would be, the goal would be to provide something less expensive than what is typically being sold in the 8,200 square feet product that is typical in the City of Hayden single family right now. So the idea is to try to get someone into that entry-level market. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's townhomes. I don't know if it's twin homes. I don't know if it's just small single-family lots. I don't know what that looks like. The goal is to try to provide something for people who've grown up here and live here and would like to continue to live here and not in mom's basement.
Thank you. Is there anyone online or in the room who knows those apartments that are presently being built on the north end of this and the south side of Hayden there? How many units are those? How many units will those apartments?
I can answer that, sir. It's 144.
Thank you.
Total.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Any other questions?
Unless Sandy, do you have any? If you don't, I'll go.
Go ahead.
Do you have any?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, could we go back to that one map where you have the arrow on the property? So I want to get this right. The rectangular box where the arrow's pointing to was annexed in at no more than 4 units per acre. True?
That's correct.
Okay, so then with a special use permit, the area in purple was 134 units?
44.
144
units.
So is that about 20 units per acre?
Density is based on a per lot basis. So that piece of property is 80 acres, 4 units per acre, 320 dwelling units for all 80 acres.
So 4.
How they, and then they came in and did a conditional use permit for 144 acres. So the remainder number of amount of density that would be allowed is the 320 minus 144.
So again, I just want to make sure I get this right. The original annexation said 4 units per acre, but then the applicant came and said, oh, we want to build a bunch of apartments and we want high density. So then there was a special use permit that allowed along that purple area along Hayden Avenue to build all those apartments. True?
A conditional use permit did allow them to utilize part of their allotted density toward multifamily uses. That's correct.
And it's conditional use permit, not special use, but that's okay, just further.
Same thing, semantic.
Sure, okay. So it kind of went against the spirit of the original annexation agreement that the city council wanted 4 per acre, but then it changed its mind and said, well, that high density is fine. And that's kind of the history of it, the way I see it. So what would restrict them? I guess what we're hearing from the applicant's representative is that that brown area could be a much higher density than 4 per acre. So could that be 8? Could that be 10? Could that be another 20 per acre?
Mixed residential allows for a maximum density of 8 dwelling units per acre, I believe. Yes. I'd have to verify that. I don't have my zone book in front of me, but it does allow for a higher density than single-family dwelling. However, mixed residential is still single-family dwellings. It's just attached townhomes, twin homes, single-family residential on smaller lots, or cottage homes. Still single-family residential.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Please.
I was going to ask about the 144 apartments. Are those going to be rentals or like condos that people can purchase?
Those are rentals.
And just for clarification, I don't know that Council President Roeder wanted to do this, but they're still, with the apartments, they still had to fall within certain density levels, which they did. They just traded space and usage. So 144 units is 144 units, but just for the record, it wasn't that they changed. They kept the density. They just changed the usage associated with those 80 acres. And
Right,
that
they
was
just changed the location and how it was spread out. That's
So
correct.
it doesn't take away. There's no justification. It's just clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
So, you're welcome.
And how many acres are the apartments on?
I don't know exactly.
One lot today. It's one lot today. It hasn't been platted as anything other than one lot.
Okay.
Any other questions for Donna or the applicant? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve with modifications or deny PZE-21-0095 to amend Bluegrass Annexation Agreement?
I would like to address that. I would like to move to deny the request to amend Bluegrass Annexation Agreement, PZE 210095.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Thank you. F, Coeur d'Alene Airport Authority request. Brett, do you have this one? And is it an actionable? I don't have it as an actionable.
This is just information. We have 2 new council members, and I think I mentioned it before. The county.
Because we have time before breakfast, so we're.
I'll make it. These are all quick.
Thank you.
But I did want to give the council a heads up that the county and the airport folks they've put out this idea of having an airport authority, which basically, in what they've drawn up, would have the county and the 4 larger cities basically be given the property and be required to run the airport. As part of what they were proposing, the cities, the county would all put money in. So Stephen Kiergaard's been tasked to talk with the 4 cities to see if we're interested in the meetings on the airport board. I've let them know that we have concerns with what they're proposing based on asking the city for money, based on the accountability portion on where the property is going. So multiple things.
This was a significant change in direction, and Brett's represented us well.
So I just wanted you to be aware that they're asking to meet, and so I figured I'd meet with them, gather the information, give some initial comments, and then we'll see where it goes. Any approval or anything would come back to the council for your decision.
But our initial reaction is not positive.
Yeah, I said we have multiple concerns at this point, so.
That's a better way to say it.
Can they even say or estimate how much it would cost each city?
In the agreement they had, it was for our portion, I believe it was $37,000 for the.
Per year?
Yeah, and it's based on
It was the
Based on
population and for the county.
And what would our participation be, and what would the benefit be to the city?
There's, I'm not, I mean, they're touting as perhaps a way that we would have more control, and I see it as the opposite, but.
How much control do we have now?
Well, we have the ability to go to county commissioners if we have any concerns, and here you'd have, so the city, what would happen is each of the cities in the county would appoint one person that would be non-staff, non-elected person that would represent on this board. And so you'd have those folks making the decisions. And so I would say, that's why I say there's probably less control. Now, one idea, that we just throw out, that the city of Hayden completely surrounds it. We obviously don't have the staff to do it, but there's positives there that we can listen and maybe throw some ideas out there, bring it all back to you. But I just wanted to give you a heads up so I don't take a ton of time, nothing to decide, but that they would like to engage the cities in a discussion.
So if I can help, because we've been involved with this for many years, back and forth, is that at present, it's driven by the county. The county commissioners have responsibility over the airport. When we have issues or concerns, or they have issues and concerns, they come to us directly. It's just the way it's been. Whether we want to zone, whether we want to buffer it, whatever needs to be done in terms of understanding changes and requests that either the airport might have of us or we have of them, we deal directly with the county commissioners. In this case, we would be one vote of 5 within a Coeur d'Alene. Is it every city?
And it's just the larger, so it'd be Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, and Rathdrum.
I'm not talking about Hutter and, okay, and Stable. So we would have one representative, each city would have one representative. So Coeur d'Alene would have the ability to be able to drive whatever they feel needs to be driven, though they aren't geographically connected.
Right.
So going through the last master plan with the airport, I mean, my observation was the Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls and even Rathdrum didn't really have a dog in the hunt. I mean, they do, but they didn't attend all the meetings and were not that interested. And so you bring in those players that are less impacted by everything that's happening when we are. And so if it dilutes our ability to do something, then that's not good for us. So
this is ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing, and I, to be fair, they can modify their approach and what they want to do. That's what I've been presented with so far, and figured go listen, see if there's some things they're wanting to change and why. But
any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. I've read about it, heard about it, and I see it as another layer of government that would now be placed over the airport, and it would cost the taxpayers more money. And so my point of view is I don't like the idea by adding more government and more taxes. So that's my position.
Yeah.
I'm in the same direction. I agree with Matt.
Is there a problem now, really, or is it just that they want to change for reasons they want to change? Is there an issue?
Well, I think there's partly political, partly spending, direction.
We can hypothesize.
Yeah,
There's not been any identified.
In the agreement, they mentioned some general things. They do mention politics and cost and some other things.
Okay. City Administrator report.
Just a couple other things I'll move through quickly. And the mayor may want to do this as well. Report on Boise. I had the AIC legislative day I went to. The mayor was there. It was actually, I think, very productive. I was able to meet with the DEQ head of the...
That was a cool thing.
Be able to hear a comment that he made about possibly getting some more grant money for projects as opposed to just previously they sent in that there were grants for planning only and for loans. And in this, because they're getting more federal money, we heard that there might be grants, but they had closed the window. And so I was able to talk with them and say, hey, what you sent out didn't include this. You should reopen this because we would like to apply. We've got several sewer projects. He didn't promise, but he heard and said, okay, now I've heard an example of where that might affect someone, and they'll go back and consider it. So that one was good. And then the mayor and I also were able to talk with, I think you say her name, Lila. She's the new head of LTAC, which is where we apply for transportation grants. And so we were able to talk about the Ramsey Road project and got some ideas and things from her. So that was good. The mayor did quite a bit of work down there on some of the tax issues.
Yeah, but your idea too so part of the issue as the legislature tries to balance the needs of a municipality with the property taxes associated with that, and then throwing in the growth factor, there's a thought to be able to use one-time monies and then ongoing monies so that the cities can utilize funds associated with transportation. It's a wonderful...
All grant money, all...
Correct. However, so this would be money, and my understanding in talking to leadership in the Senate is that the monies would be allocated to specific municipalities based upon our needs, which makes all the sense in the world. The concern that we have is that we don't want a state agency to get the money and then decide who gets it. Am I doing okay? Because I have to be really, okay, so it hasn't been done, but if in fact the city of Hayden has projects that have been identified, then allocation of funds should be consistent to the city, not to another entity that we would then come forward with and say, we have this amount of projects, please can we get funds for it? And that agency, we don't want to have the power to be able to say, no, Matt, you have requests that you're going to get, and Ed, though the money should be for everybody, Matt's requests are really more important than yours.
Right.
And that's what we're working on. And I received direction from members of the Transportation Committee leadership in both the House and the Senate that will be asked and addressed. We just need to do it the right way. Whatever goes on from a funding standpoint, it needs to make sense and it needs to be consistent. So that's a lot of my time was to try to identify that. I'm happy to be home and I don't want to go back, and I'll go back in 2 weeks. So, or 3 or whenever Abby says I can.
Just a couple calendaring things. If you hold, we need to confirm, but a joint workshop with P&Z on February 7th. It's their day, so it's a Monday at 3:30. That's the second meeting that we've talked about.
7th, did you say?
It's the 7th.
At 3:30 on February 7th here.
And we have a council meeting the next night.
Correct. Yeah. Also, a reminder, tomorrow is the Honeysuckle Beach open house, where we'll have documents set up here, pictures and things where the public can come in and make comment. We'll have comment sheets. They can either go online and fill it out, or they can fill it out on paper. So that's 4:30 to 6:30 in this room.
Brett, I've had people call saying, why are you doing something with the people when the people that live on the lake aren't able to provide feedback? And my thought was, this is no different. This is honeysuckle. It doesn't affect people on the lake any more than honeysuckle affects them now. Is that a...
Well, but they all can come give comment, and I think we'll have a lot of the folks that live along the lake here because their association sent out direct information, so which is fine. We're at a point where no decisions have been made. We're gathering information, and before we spend additional money, we want to hear from the public. So, also, I don't have a date, but HURA has requested, maybe Matt has requested to have a joint meeting with the mayor and city council. So, sometime probably later in February. that we'll set that up, but I just heads up on that. So we were looking at doing a facilities meeting this Thursday, but with Roger perhaps out and Matt, I don't want to interfere with things that you have going as well. I think we may postpone that again as well until we have everybody that's there. So other than that, that's, well, we were going to mention ARPA, but we're working on that stuff, so we don't have a report tonight, but I do, the positive side of things that I want to bring up is on the final report that we were waiting for, it looks like basically you can choose an exemption up to $10 million, which we're getting, if we take it, we get 3.2, which allows us to use it for a lot wider purposes. And so anyways, I printed off the summary of that. It's even the summary is 44 pages, and I've read a chunk of that, but
The entire decision's 467 pages.
which, did you take a shot at?
Line by line?
I did.
So,
Yes,
Was there
sir.
line item vetoes associated with that, or?
but we will come back with more specific information on that. So, still working.
Anything else from any member of the council?
Well, I'd just like to make one suggestion, that we send an invitation to our local legislators, our state senator and 2 reps. I think it's important that we try to get meeting with them on a regular, I know they're in Boise, but they're only home on the weekend, so maybe we're looking after
I requested a meeting with them, and they did not show up when I was in Boise.
I'll ask them.
Thank you.
I'll ask them, but if it'd be nice if we could meet together. They need to hear where the cities are coming from, at least from Hayden, and they represent us in this district. So I think after the legislature convenes, it might be a possibility, but during that time, only the weekends, and I don't think we'd want to get together with them on the weekend. So I'll do an invitation.
Good.
And see if we can get them to come, and it'd be nice to have a
Nice to
chat
get
with
it
them.
before they vote, by the way. That's the even if it's Saturdays.
The other thing that the KCRCC used to do this when I was on it. I was on it for 16 years, and it's been 8 years since I've been on it. We used to have a conference call with them on a Tuesday night at 8. Maybe we could get them on a conference call.
That would be great.
And just do that as an item on our agenda, to have just a back and forth discussion of our concerns.
Good.
One more thing if possible, maybe some advice from council here. I think,
I have a rule.
what's that?
Never ask me a question on the record that I'm not prepared for.
Yeah, you should be prepared for this, I think. And if not, please say, I'll get back to you.
I will.
Yeah. We had it come up tonight in the discussion a little bit with the issues that we had on the annexation agreement, that whole deal, and I believe I might have even queried you about it prior. With this pending potential future land use amendment, whatever process that we're going through, and hopefully it's not, but it appears that it could be a lengthy process here, months and possible. I don't know, and if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. But I have a concern that there may be people who recognize that, we better jump in while we can. I think interim ordinances are some way that we can say, we're about to enter this process to revisit it, and I would not like to be making decisions until we can complete that process.
I haven't heard anything that gives you the statutory authority to put a moratorium on applications.
Not a moratorium.
So
Well, that's what it is.
But that's what it is.
So.
What's the difference?
So let me finish. May I finish?
Yeah.
Well, you'd need an ordinance on a moratorium on applications. But, so what I would tell you is you have a statutory obligation in balancing the city responsibilities and your land use obligations with private property rights. You have an obligation to move those applications through on the timing that's required by law. So to include, and if you've all been trained on the process of these applications, an application comes in, they're going to have a pre-application meeting with staff. Staff's going to go through a completeness process with them. They're going to have, it takes time. There's technical studies that have to be done, traffic studies, environmental studies. And so you don't have the ability, from anything I've heard so far, to stop that application process from moving through just because of what you might be considering with amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Okay, I guess I need some clarification then on the interim ordinance that we went through regarding mixed residential or whatever it is. And my understanding was that it basically gave us 12 months to revisit it. And during those, and again, I could probably be totally wrong here, I was under the impression that during those 12 months, that anything that came in for that usage was not required to be a decision or obviously I'm confused about that. What the interim ordinance that we put on mixed residential a few months back.
So we put this was, I don't know, August, an interim ordinance that basically put the multifamily code section back in as valid because we had properties that were still multifamily. So we didn't want to not have, and so we put a year deadline on that we needed to do something with that. And so
the effect of that is you have multifamily zones that now have a code that gives them some direction in that zone, whereas you had removed it before in anticipation of moving to the.
And there's the difference.
So it had no effect on multi-residential.
No, it doesn't really have any effect on the mixed use. It's
mixed residential.
Yeah, mixed residential, mixed use. The idea was those that were in multifamily areas, that if they came in and requested to put a shop on or to do something, we then had code sections in there for that to apply, but it really didn't change anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other input from any member of the council? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I don't need a second.
All right.
Meeting is adjourned.
That was a lot.